Chapter 1209. Good! Immediately, the stadium erupted into cheers. After 4 consecutive matches, the first 3 matches were all about who was better. Finally, there was a match that everyone enjoyed watching. It should be known that Grandmasters of Combat did not have weapon or armor proficiency. Whether it was attack, defense, or attack range, they were inferior to other classes. The only redeeming feature was the short cooldown time. To place one's pride fully demonstrated the flexible playstyle that a Grandmaster of Combat should have, and taught all Grandmaster of Combat players a lesson. Even Lurking Frenzy, who was stomped to death by To Place One's Pride, accepted his defeat. It couldn't be helped. Skill cooldown time was an advantage for Grandmasters of Combat. This was something that external factors could not greatly change. Team Shadow of Amorn was very open-minded. After Lurking Frenzy was defeated by To Place One's Pride, he very calmly offered to surrender. The first match ended in a complete victory for the Ragtag Bunch. No one was surprised by Shadow of Amorn's choice. After all, an expert like Lurking Frenzy was defeated. Even if they continued fighting, the result would not change. It was just a pity that Lurking Frenzy was an expert. Of course, opportunities were always given to those with ability. The audience for the Pro League was not limited to gamers. The managers of the various teams would also come to look for players with potential. Both Lurking Frenzy and To Place One's Pride were young, and they were very skilled. Although this battle was in the amateur division, the excitement of the two was comparable to that of professional experts. After the battle, it left a deep impression on the audience. Especially since these 2 kids were quite good-looking, they fit the packaging requirement. Many people were probably eyeing them now. After the match ended, both teams exited the gaming cabin. At this moment, Lurking Frenzy ran to Chuanjin's team and pulled To Place One's Pride. He said excitedly, "Brother, you really have some skills. It's my honor to fight with you." Hee. To Place One's Pride smiled awkwardly as he glanced at Chuanjin and the others, then said, "I also feel very happy to fight with you, but as for an expert, I really can't be considered." To Place One's Pride, he looked at Wang Yu and the others. Shadowy Maniac followed To Place One's Pride's gaze and asked excitedly To Place One's Pride, "Is this Guru Iron Ox?" "Yes. Uncle Nyo is the real expert. He taught me all my martial arts," To Place One's Pride replied. "Is that so?" Looming Shadow Frenzy said in surprise, "Great God Iron Ox, do you have any secret to success?" "Secret?" Wang Yu was puzzled. "Does my kung fu count?" "Huh!" Hidden Shadow was stunned. "Martial arts? There really is such a thing?" "Of course," Wang Yu said, "I'm a boxing grandmaster. Seeing that your reflexes are pretty good, do you want to learn a thing or two from me?" Hidden Shadow Frenzy was speechless for a moment. He turned his head and said to Place One's Pride, "Brother, you go ahead with your work. We'll contact each other when we have time. I still have things to do, so I won't chat with you guys." After saying that, Hidden Shadow Frenzy fled as fast as he could, leaving behind the Chuanjin people with black lines on their faces. What kind of person is this? Seeing that Wang Yu was disrespected, Mu Zixian was so angry that she stomped her feet. "It's okay," Wang Yu said calmly. "There's still a long way to go to get everyone to accept Kung Fu. As long as we can show good results, when the time comes, everyone will naturally take the initiative to learn Kung Fu." Just as Wang Yu and the others were pacing back and forth in the competition room, Nian Luyun and the others walked in. It seemed like they would be in the second match. "Brother Yu." Nian Luyun was more obedient and sensible. She came up and greeted Wang Yu. "Hi." Wang Yu also waved at Nian Luyun. These two met like old friends, but when the others met, the scene was a little awkward. After all, Chuanjin had suffered at the hands of Icy Jade and the others. It could be said that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. When they saw Icy Jade and the others, they all squinted their eyes. It was unknown what they were thinking. However, Evildoers Run Wild was considered a foreign aid and was not counted in Chuanjian. He did not have any grudges with Nian Luyun and the others. When this guy saw Icy Jade, he smiled and went over. Hey, Littlely, I didn't think we would meet here. Icy Jade was as arrogant as ever. Other than those who were stronger than her, she did not care about anyone else. Seeing Evildoers Run Wild go over, Icy Jade said coldly, I didn't expect you guys to make it into the professional league. Without waiting for Evildoers Run Wild to reply, Wuji coldly said, If you guys can make it into the professional league, why can't we? What did you say? The people behind Li Yujie heard this and glared at Wuji. Wang Yu silently moved to the side, blocking Wuji behind him. Seeing Wang Yu, the angry crowd immediately quieted down. Li Yujie glanced at Wang Yu, then looked at Wuji. Then he laughed coldly. Actually, I quite admire your courage. You guys still dare to walk on the streets dressed like this. In order to not embarrass you guys, I've decided that if I meet you guys, I will treat you well. I definitely won't let you guys embarrass yourselves until the finals. Tisa, Wuji said disdainfully. I'm just afraid that you Grandmasters of Combat won't even have the chance to meet us. Just pray. Li Yujie knew that he was no match for Wuji. So he coldly snorted and ignored Wuji. At this time, the staff also urged, All right, break time is over. Let's hurry up. Got it, got it. Nian Luyun and the others replied and followed Icy Jade into the gaming cabin. Looking at Icy Jade and the others in the gaming cabin, Wuji's face was extremely gloomy. If nothing unexpected happens, these guys will be our final opponents. Wang Yu laughed. What's wrong? Are you really afraid of them? Of course you're not. Chun Xiang and the others rolled their eyes at Wang Yu. But you have to think about how we feel. It was true. Nian Luyun and the others might not be able to do much in front of Wang Yu, but they were still martial artists. Nian Luyun and Ji Shursan were not weaker than Evildoers Run Wild. As for Icy Jade, she was even stronger than Evildoers Run Wild. No matter how weak the others were, they were still martial artists. They were stronger than normal people like Chuanjian. If they were to really fight, the only ones who could fight them were Wang Yu, Yang Na, and Evildoers Run Wild. The competition was a team game. Even if Wang Yu was invincible, if he was alone, it would be hard for him to win. It's fine. Wang Yu waved his hand. I won't blame you guys for holding us back. Chapter 12:10. Wang Yu was sweating profusely. Forgive me for being blunt, but these people have been practicing martial arts since they were young. Even if you have me to teach you, you won't be their match. You might as well unplug their gaming pods. That makes sense. Everyone came to a sudden realization. Unplugging is indeed a good idea. The staff who had been standing at the side was shocked. He stared at the hostages of Chuanjian and asked, What did you say? Haha. Seeing that there were outsiders, the Chuanjian people quickly laughed and said, Just kidding. Immediately after, Wuji said, Old Cow, as a martial arts practitioner, tell us what are the weaknesses of martial arts practitioners. Wang Yu spread his hands and pretended to be pretentious. I'm sorry, I don't have any weaknesses. Don't be shameless. Tell us. Everyone was furious. If you want to talk about weaknesses. Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said, Grandmasters of Combat belong to the agility class. They don't have high DPS and HP, and they are more afraid of crowd control. Therefore, if we can use our crowd control skills well, they won't be able to do anything even if they attack together. Crowd control? Yes. Wang Yu nodded and said, Didn't you guys notice that they are all Grandmasters of Combat? That's right. Wuji was slightly startled and said, I almost forgot about this. These guys are all Grandmasters of Combat. Not only Rebirth, but all online games emphasize teamwork. Every class also had its own specialty. Therefore, class allocation was very important for a qualified team. A qualified team. Healer, crowd control, tank, and DPS. No matter which class was missing, there would be one more weakness. If one only chose a class based on which class was good at one-on-one fights, it was estimated that 90% of the players in Rebirth would choose to play the Assassin class. The Grandmaster of Combat class seemed to be very versatile, but in fact, it was a versatile class that did not stand out in many aspects. Thinking about it carefully, it also had the most weaknesses. No matter how good Clear Ice and the others were, if they only had one Grandmaster of Combat class, they would not be able to make up for the shortcomings of the class. After understanding this point, everyone in Chuanjin was in a good mood. They happily walked out of the competition room and went to their respective seat. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Even if he knew the weaknesses of Crystal Clear Jade and the others, he still had to know how strong they were. At that moment, the match had already begun. Nian Luyun was standing in the arena. The audience's cheers and exclamations came wave after wave, as if they were going to lift the roof of the arena first. Wang Yu and the others were extremely puzzled. Weren't the cheers of the audience a little too exaggerated? Could it be that they were paid to act? Of course, what the Chuanjin team didn't know was that during their own competition, the audience's curses were much more exaggerated than this. The few of them returned to their seat. At this time, Nian Luyun also threw his opponent out of the arena. At that time, the voice of the MC rang out in the arena. First round of the competition, Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry team wins with a score of 5 o'clock. Pooh. Hearing the MC's words, Evildoers Run Wild, who was holding a cup of water, spat it onto the heads of the audience in the front row. At the same time, he said in a daze, F***CK, the first 5 matches are over? How can it be so fast? At this time, the player next to Evildoers Run Wild said excitedly, Yeah, it's that fast. This Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry team is really amazing. Really? Evildoers Run Wild was sweating profusely. From the time Crystal Clear Jade and the others entered the gaming pods to the time when the Chuanjin team returned to the audience seats, less than 5 minutes had passed. 5 matches in 5 minutes, including some messy things. Could it be that every match was going to be an instant kill? Of course it's true. The player said excitedly, I didn't expect the Grandmaster of Combat class to be so powerful. If I knew this, I would have chosen Grandmaster of Combat too. As he said this, he looked at Evildoers Run Wild and said, I envy you, you still have a chance. What chance? Evildoers Run Wild was confused. Becoming their disciple. F***CK. Evildoers Run Wild's forehead swelled up. At the same time, Wang Yu, Wuji, and the rest of the Chuanjin team also learned about the 5 matches from the audience. The arena was the same as Chuanjin's arena. However, the difference was that Pure Ice Jade's group was extremely efficient in their attack. Without exception, all of Pure Ice Jade's group's opponents were thrown off the stage within a few seconds of the match's countdown. His speed was fast and his methods were ruthless, causing everyone to be flabbergasted. While everyone was still in shock, the second round of the wheel race began. After a series of random choices, Crystal Clear Jade was transported to the arena with a great spear in hand. This time, the arena was a wrestling ring. Although it was much bigger than the previous arena, the field of view was the same as the arena, extremely wide. Pure Ice's opponent was a tall and sturdy shield warrior. That shield warrior's face was valiant, and the tower shield in his hand was shining brightly. One look and anyone could tell that it was no ordinary item. After the countdown ended, he charged towards Pure Ice without saying a word. Crystal Clear Jade stood in place with his great spear behind his back and coldly looked at the charging warrior. Just as the warrior was less than 3 meters away from Pure Ice Jade, Pure Ice lightly flicked her spear backwards. Holding the spear with both hands, she thrust it diagonally towards the warrior, and flicked it upwards. The warrior was involuntarily sent flying. This move is very familiar. Everyone looked at Wang Yu. Wang Yu seemed to have used this move before. Wang Yu laughed, Azure Dragon playing with water, the Li family's ultimate spear technique. As he spoke, the warrior was flicked into the air by crystal clear jade. Crystal clear jade took 2 steps forward and went around the warrior's shield. At the same time, she fiercely stabbed upwards with her long spear. Pucci! The great spear of pure ice and jade pierced right between the warrior's thighs. Hiss! Seeing this scene, everyone's anus tightened and they sucked in a breath of cold air. The way they looked at crystal clear jade became extremely strange. In Rebirth, after a player was knocked into the air, they could quick recover. The warrior was not weak either. At this time, as long as he adjusted his balance, he would be able to get out of being knocked into the air. However, crystal clear jade's move was too vicious. After being stabbed in the vitals, the warrior was only concerned with fear and did not have the thought of quick recovering. At that time, crystal clear jade grabbed the end of the spear and fiercely smashed it downwards. The poor warrior was heavily thrown onto the ground. A circle of stars appeared on top of his head. It seemed that he had fainted from the fall. Crystal clear jade stepped forward and stepped on the warrior's arm. She aimed the great spear in her hand at the back of the warrior's head and stabbed several times. Bang 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 bang! After a series of hits, a string of numbers floated above the warrior's head. Immediately after, he tragically turned into a white light. After killing her opponent, crystal clear jade once again stood up with her spear. Her face was expressionless, as if she had done something insignificant. Hua! Chapter 12:11. Pure Ice and Wang Yu were the same, both of them were children of big clans. She had a special aura about her. As a martial artist, she had an indescribable confidence. Coupled with Pure Ice's extremely beautiful appearance, Pure Ice could be said to be perfect. As the saying goes, beauty is justice. Such an outstanding girl, nobody dared to imagine what she would do in a fight. At this moment, Pure Ice's display of strength was definitely out of everyone's expectations. Moreover, Pure Ice was an extremely arrogant woman. After killing her opponent, her face was as cold as ice and her heart was as still as water. She immediately captured the hearts of thousands of boys and girls. This girl, she's too handsome, I want to give birth to a monkey for her. Everyone in the audience clenched their fists. Watching Pure Ice on the stage, they were extremely excited. Pfft! Seeing the audience's reaction, Wuji spat in disdain. You guys are not the ones who died. As he said that, Wuji recalled the scene of Pure Ice's opponent's tragic death and felt a chill run down his spine. This kind of woman, perhaps only someone like Wang Yu, who was even more ruthless, would be able to control her. Just as everyone was exclaiming in admiration, the second opponent was also teleported onto the stage. Pure Ice's skills could be said that among the younger generation, other than Wang Yu, there were few who could rival her. Moreover, the Li family's martial arts were more suitable for gaming. In gaming, there were probably only a few who could beat Pure Ice in a one-on-one fight. The result of the match was naturally predictable. In just one round, the Pure Ice and Jade Elite's opponent was pierced through by her spear, causing her heart to turn cold. The third, the fourth, the fifth compared to the first two, the next three didn't have the slightest improvement. They all went up, counted down, closed their eyes, and were stabbed to death from the beginning to the end. Pure Ice had an expressionless face. She didn't feel happy or sad, as if the 5 people who were stabbed to death had nothing to do with her. That incomparably powerful aura shot up to the sky, causing the entire audience to be moved. Cold, cold spear. No one knew who cried out in surprise, but soon everyone followed suit. Cold spear, cold spear. Those who did not know better would have thought that it was an A-list god going on stage. Even the people of Chuanjin looked at Wang Yu, Yang Na, and evildoers run wild with strange expressions. This girl is too arrogant. Which one of you will go and destroy it later? Yang Na and evildoers run wild turned to look at Wang Yu. It was obvious that the two of them knew that their skills were far from pure ice and pure jade. Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said with a faint smile, "This girl has improved a lot recently. It seems that she has put in a lot of effort." "Even you can't beat her?" everyone exclaimed. "Are you kidding me?" Wang Yu said shamelessly. "Didn't I say it before? If hard work is useful, why do we need geniuses?" Everyone pursed their lips. Clear Ice Jade's aura was so strong that not only did it intimidate everyone, it even scared the opposing team. Now that their morale was low, even if they continued to fight, the result would be a tragedy. Therefore, once the second round of matches ended, the opposing team immediately chose to surrender. Motley Crowd Battle Team and Fighters Don't Cry Battle Team both advanced to the next round. These two battle teams, one extremely lowly and the other extremely strong, left a deep impression on the audience. However, the following few battle teams did not have much of a style. Everyone fought in an orderly manner. From a technical point of view, teams that could make it into the Pro League were not weak. However, amateur teams were still amateur teams. Compared to professional teams, they were still lacking. It could only be said that these people were playing quite well. The matches lasted from 10 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. Excluding lunchtime, they played for more than 5 hours. Finally, the 7 matches of the amateur teams were over. Including the lucky teams that were not in the next round, a total of 8 teams advanced to the next round. The first day of competition was considered to have ended successfully. After leaving the venue, just as Wang Yu and the others were about to return to the hotel to rest, Bao San's eyes suddenly became dazed. He looked not far away and called out with a blank expression, "Xing Zhu! What pig!" When everyone heard that, they looked at Bao San in confusion and thought to themselves, "What's wrong with this guy?" Meanwhile, Wuji followed Bao San's gaze and looked over. His expression turned a little ugly as he said, "It's not a pig. It's Xing Zhu. You know Wan Xing Zhu, right? The one in teacher Jin Yong's novel." Immediately after, Wuji said unhappily, "Why is this chick here? What's going on?" After hearing Wuji's explanation, everyone was even more dumbfounded. Could it be Bao San's ex-girlfriend? Just as everyone was imagining things, a voice came from not far away. "Bao San, is that you?" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw an elegant girl with long hair waving at Bao San. When Bao San heard that, he trembled in excitement and said, It's me." It really is his ex-girlfriend. Seeing this scene, everyone retreated behind Bao San. They narrowed their eyes and pricked up their ears. The expression on their faces was clearly one of gossip. At that moment, the girl pulled a tall and handsome man in a suit over. Everyone looked at the handsome guy behind Miss Xing Zhu, then looked at Bao San, who was wearing the martial arts world's supreme yellow coat. Their hearts could not help but skip a beat. In terms of hardware, Bao San could not keep up. When she came in front of everyone, Miss Xing Zhu revealed a sweet smile and said, "It's really you in the competition today. I almost couldn't recognize you dressed like this. This coat is really interesting." Hearing Xing Zhu's words, the Chuanjian people's expressions darkened. This girl looked harmless, but why did she speak without thinking? She touched a sore spot and said that in front of her boyfriend. She was clearly trying to embarrass Bao San. It's provided by the sponsor. I have no choice but to wear it," Bao San said nervously. "Oh." Miss Xing Zhu looked at the Chuanjian people in surprise and said, "Amateurs like you have sponsors? What are they after?" F***CK. Now, the Chuanjian people could tell that this girl was here to cause trouble. Just for fun. Faced with Xing Zhu's aggressiveness, Bao San said hesitantly. Seeing that his brother was being bullied, Wuji could not stand it anymore. He took over and asked, "Little Zhu, didn't you go overseas? When did you come back?" Hearing Wuji's words, Xing Zhu hurriedly replied, "So big brother Wuji is here too." Her tone was filled with surprise. The Chuanjian people were speechless. They whispered, F*ck, her acting is too fake. Wuji is standing beside Bao San. Is this girl blind? Chapter 12:12. Aya, I didn't want to come back either. Xing Zhu pretended to be angry. Then, she pointed at the handsome guy behind her and said, My fiancé came back for a competition, so I followed him. His name is Mark. He's a professional gamer. Hello, brother Mark. Bao San smiled bitterly and extended his hand. Mark ignored Bao San and looked at the Chuanjian people with a smile. He said calmly, Hello, I watched your competition. It was very interesting. His tone was like a god giving advice to a newbie, and his face was full of pretentiousness. The Chuanjian people naturally did not give face to such a pretentious prick. They all looked away. Ha! Seeing that everyone was disdainful of Mark's identity as a professional gamer, Xing Zhu smiled and said, Mark is not only a professional gamer. He's also the son of the CEO of XX Company. You know XX Company, right? Their boss and chairman Ma of Longting Corporation are relative. The Chuanjian people were speechless. This lady looked nice, but after saying a few words, her ignorant and superficial temperament was completely revealed. Nobody was comparing with her. What was she showing off for? Everyone had their own ambitions. It was human nature to pursue fame and fortune. If one did not like a useless homebody like Bao San, nobody would force them. However, it was wrong of them to come and mock him. Of course, the matters between men and women were not clear. Everyone could only watch and not help each other. However, hearing that this Mark was a relative of Chairman Ma of Longting Corporation, Molly, who had been staring at Xing Zhu with an unfriendly expression, sneered. Is Chairman Ma's relative very powerful? This is? Xing Zhu glanced at Molly and asked curiously. Before Molly could answer, Chun Xiang introduced. This is Molly, Bao San's fiancé. The chairman of Longting Corporation is her father. F*ck. The moment Chun Xiang said that, everyone from Chuanjian nearly choked to death. Even someone as calm as Wuji almost couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. Chun Xiang, this F*ker, really dared to brag. Why didn't he say that he was Ma Longting? However, hearing Chun Xiang's words, Molly and Xing Zhu were stunned. Then, they revealed a shocked expression. Obviously, Xing Zhu did not believe it and was 70% disdainful. Molly, on the other hand, asked Spring Soar in surprise, You? How did you know? Seeing that Molly was so cooperative, Chun Xiang said confidently, Of course, it was Bao San who revealed it to me. He also told me not to tell anyone, because he was afraid that his lowly ex-girlfriend would borrow money from him and pretend to be a rich second generation. Xing Zhu's face darkened when she heard that. It could be said that Chun Xiang was the most despicable person in the Quanzhen sect. With just a few words, he was able to smear Xing Zhu from the inside out. That. Wuji held back his laughter as he asked Xing Zhu, I've said what I wanted to say, and I've shown off what I wanted to show off. Now you have nothing else to say, right? Xing Zhu said awkwardly, I just wanted to catch up with Bao San. Brother Wuji, you misunderstood me. Wuji said lightly, It's a pity that our third master doesn't have time to bother with you. Alright, if you're fine, we're still busy. Let's go. With that said, Wuji gave the Chuanjian people a look, and they dragged Bao San back to the hotel. Only Xing Zhu and Spring Soar were left at the entrance with their mouths agape. Thank you, everyone. When they returned to the hotel, Bao San's mood was much better. He thanked everyone, then looked at Molly and said, I'm sorry. Molly was a very cheerful girl. She waved her hand indifferently and said, It's not a big deal. If the three of you are willing, I can be your girlfriend. Bao San blushed. Li Shui and the others tugged at Molly and said, Restrain yourself, restrain yourself. Chun Xiang, the gossipy guy, stuck his head out and asked, San is that really your ex-girlfriend? Yes. Bao San nodded, his eyes filled with loneliness. Young man, you don't have good taste. Why did you find such a lowly one? Chun Xiang curled his lips. Everyone present was an educated person. This kind of blatant flaunting really made everyone feel very uncomfortable. She wasn't like this in the past. Bao San defended himself. Isn't that so? Wu Ji snorted and said, if she was like this from the beginning, would you have raised her abroad for 3 years without holding her hand? In the end, you even got kicked by someone. Even now, you're still afraid of women. Mind your own business. Bao San was furious. If I don't care about you, who cares about you? Wu Ji also slammed the table hard. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, everyone hurriedly pulled them apart. Now everyone finally understood. No wonder Bao San was usually neurotic and ruthless towards women. So there was such a story behind it. Even an upright official would find it difficult to settle a family feud. Everyone had their own emotional experiences. Some girls liked scumbags, while some boys liked pretentious bitches. Everyone understood this logic, but this was a psychological problem. It could only be seen through by oneself. No one could help, so the only thing everyone could do was not mention it. After pulling the two of them apart, Bao San left the hall with a dark expression. Molly looked at Bao San's back as he left. She wanted to say something but stopped herself. She said with a complicated expression, "He'll be fine, right?" Wu Ji said angrily, "Don't worry about him. He's just like that." Poor parents. Mingdu sighed. Everyone's eyes widened. Brothers! Mingdu hurriedly changed his words. Everyone had traveled thousands of miles to participate in the competition. Naturally, they would not let such a small matter ruin their spirit. Early the next morning, Bao San acted as if nothing had happened. Seeing that Bao San had calmed down, everyone was sensible enough not to bring up those unhappy things. The group of people chatted and laughed as they went to the arena. Today was the second round of the amateur competition. The rules of the competition were still the same. Random draw. The arena darkened. The lights fell and began to flicker. No one knew if it was intentional, but Xuanzhen's ragtag team was placed in the first round again. Their opponent was the Lucky Team that had a bye the day before. That's right, the team's name was Lucky Team. However, it was obvious that they had used up all their luck yesterday. The next day, they met Xuanzhen. Both teams entered the arena. The referee began to introduce the players. Then, it was 3 consecutive matches. There was no doubt about the result. Xuanzhen was as shameless as ever. They broke through all the obstacles and won the competition without much effort. After 4 matches, another 4 teams were eliminated. After 2 more rounds, Ragtag Team and Don't Cry Team, the Grandmasters of Combat, easily made it to the finals. The audience was not surprised that Crystal Clear Jade and her team could make it to the finals. After all, these Grandmasters of Combat had shown their strong combat power in the beginning. However, the fact that Xuanzhen and his team could be so shameless was beyond the audience's expectations. It should be known that these amateur players were celebrities in their respective battle zones. They were not weak. After a few rounds of elimination, those who could stay in the arena were all strong. Chapter 12-13. The break time was over, and the 2 teams entered the arena. As the last match of the amateur group, this match was especially important to both teams. After all, only the winner could fight against professional-level players. Most importantly, these 2 teams represented the glory of the North and South martial arts world. The audience also showed unprecedented anticipation for this match. The martial artists' Don't Cry team swept through the entire tournament. Their strong strength left a deep impression on everyone, and Xuanzhen's shameless and despicable style was also deeply rooted in people's hearts. Regardless of whether these 2 teams were professional players or not, the wretched B***cheese being trampled on by experts was something that everyone loved to see. Let's welcome the martial artists' Don't Cry team. Following the host's invitation, the projections of the Ice Clear Jade team appeared on the arena one after another under the anticipation of the audience. The audience followed and cheered loudly. It was the last amateur competition, and the gimmick was very good. The host catered to the curiosity of the audience and introduced with a magnetic voice, "The Martial Artists Don't Cry team is a new team made up of all martial artists. Their captain is the legendary Cold Spear Ice Clear Jade team. The team has never met a worthy opponent since their debut. They use their actions to defend the dignity and glory of martial artists. Just like their team name says, martial artists never cry." Although the host's words were half true and half false, it made people's blood boil. Especially for the martial artists who had been discriminated against and oppressed, they could feel the same. Hearing the host's words, everyone was moved to tears and cheered loudly for the Martial Artists Don't Cry team. After the introduction of the Martial Artists Don't Cry team, the Chuanjin team was also transported into the arena. Seeing the members of the Quanjun sect swaying left and right and whispering to each other, the spectators immediately booed. This group of wretched fellows was still acting sloppily on the competition stage. It was truly an eyesore to look at. The host was speechless for a moment, then introduced, "The Motley Crowd team is also a new team, but their members are the fearsome Chuanjin team in the gaming world. As the saying goes, are you done or not? Start." When the audience saw that the host and his collaborator were trying to stall for time, they couldn't help but fly into a rage and protest. As the saying goes, the audience is the Jade Emperor. Seeing that everyone was indignant, the host hurriedly stopped talking nonsense and said cleanly, "The competition begins." The two teams finally entered the battlefield. According to the usual practice, the Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry battle team would choose the map for the first duel. Crystal Clear Jade's group had fought against Chuanjin before, and had also watched all of Chuanjin's matches. They knew that this group of people would do anything to win, and were extremely difficult to deal with. Thus, Pure Ice Jade didn't even think about it and directly chose the arena as the setting for the first match. Seeing the map that Pure Ice Jade had chosen, the audience could not help but exclaim, "Wow!" As expected of cold-faced Cold Spear, he is indeed brimming with confidence. It should be known that in the few matches that Chuanjin had won, the first map that they had chosen was the arena. From this, it could be seen that Chuanjin's group had a deep understanding of this setting. Now that Pure Ice had chosen this map, in the eyes of the average player, it was obvious that she knew how difficult it was to deal with Chuanjin's strong points. However, seeing that Pure Ice had chosen the arena map, Wuji's expression darkened. This girl is really hard to deal with. In terms of individual strength, other than a few people from Chuanjin, no one was a match for Pure Ice and her group. In this kind of overwhelming strength, the arena was the most important factor in reducing the gap. The bigger the arena, the more things that could be used. The reason why Chuanjin had always used the arena as their home ground was so that the other strong teams would subconsciously avoid this map when choosing the first map, giving Chuanjin some room to maneuver. Who would have thought that this girl Pure Ice would instantly see through Wuji's intentions? Choosing this map was undoubtedly a direct confrontation. After thinking for a while, Wuji said calmly, "Brother Chun, you go first." Chun Xiang was a hand controller and had a strong damage output. Compared to the others, he had a much bigger advantage in this arena. "Okay." Chun Xiang nodded and went to the arena with his staff. On the side of the Fighters Don't Cry team, the one who went up was a fighter with the ID of Dragon Zealing. This Dragon Zealing had also gone up in the previous matches. His fist techniques were very ruthless, and his close combat skills were quite strong. However, this kid was younger than to place one's pride, so his fighting style was quite aggressive. Seeing that his opponent was Dragon Zealing, Chun Xiang rolled his eyes and greeted him from afar. "Little friend, why did your team send you up? Are you bullying a kid?" Playing a match was about calming one's emotions. Whoever was agitated would lose half the battle, so calming the opponent's emotions before the match was also a skill. Being teased by Chun Xiang like this, Dragon Zealing immediately retorted, Did the people from Chuanjin know that they can't beat you, so they invited their parents? Dragon Zealing himself was very taboo when people talked about age, so he instinctively felt that it was also taboo for others to talk about age. He thought that insulting Chun Xiang's age would make Chun Xiang angry. Little did he know that this kind of taunting couldn't break through Chun Xiang's defense at all. Not only was Chun Xiang not angry, he even said with a smile, "Yeah, they said that the kid talks too much nonsense, so they let me, as their parent, go up and take care of him." When it came to insulting people, Dragon Zealing was still very inexperienced. Chun Xiang's casual words made Dragon Zealing have a cheap father, and immediately caused Dragon Zealing's anger to erupt. "Motherf asterisk cur. You son of a b asterisk tch, do you want to die?" Dragon Zealing was so angry that he pointed at Chun Xiang's nose and cursed loudly. Hearing this, the audience couldn't help but feel speechless and mourn for Dragon Zealing. Insulting and provoking the morale of the audience before a match was a tactic that had existed since ancient times, but insulting people like Dragon Zealing was not allowed. Everyone knew that Chuanjin was a despicable person, and this kid still jumped at the slightest provocation. Wasn't this playing right into their hands? How pitiful! Sure enough, seeing that Dragon Zealing's insults were getting more and more unpleasant, Chun Xiang smiled and raised his hand shouting, Hey, referee, does this count as a personal attack?" "Yes." The referee pulled out a red card with a dark expression. Dragon Zealing was immediately banned and kicked off the ring amidst his insults. The system announced, "First match, first round, Chuanjin Chun Xiang wins." The audience in the ring had tears streaming down their cheeks. There was no end to this, was there? Why did they have to face this bunch of bastards from Chuanjin? Why was it so difficult for everyone to watch a proper match? Chapter 12-14. Not only did the audience on the stage collapse, but the Chuanjin players were also dumbfounded. F***ck, Brother Chun, what kind of explanation is that? Chun Xiang said proudly. This is the art of winning without a fight. You guys still have to learn. Well said. The crowd applauded Chun Xiang. On the Grandmaster of Combat's side, Bleak Jade and the others poked Dragon Zealing's head and scolded, "You idiot, why do you care about him? He scolded me first," Dragon Zealing said with a wronged expression. The crowd was furious. "You still dare to quibble? Why wasn't he sent off when he scolded you? Go and reflect on yourself." Dragon Zealing's little friend was despised by the crowd. With tears in his eyes, he sniffled and squatted in the corner. After such a ruckus, Icy Pure Jade could see that although her subordinates were strong, when it came to cunningness, none of them could compare to those from the Chuanjin sect. After some thought, Bleak Jade said, "No matter who goes up later, no one is allowed to talk to the Chuanjin people. Do you hear me?" Understood. With the lesson from Dragon Zealing, everyone was still fearful and remembered Bleak Jade's teachings in their hearts. "As long as you remember," Bleak Jade sighed. "Then little Nian will go up for the second round." Nian Luyun had a good personality and was calm. She had fought with Chuanjin the most, so she was the one Bleak Jade trusted the most. With a flash of white light, Nian Luyun was teleported to the stage. Wuji whispered a few words into Mingdu's ear, and Mingdu also went up with a smirk. Other than Wang Yu, the person Nian Luyun interacted with the most in Chuanjin was Mingdu. Nian Luyun knew that Mingdu talked a lot of nonsense. Seeing that the opponent was Mingdu, Nian Luyun subconsciously took a few steps back and covered her ears. For martial artists, hearing was a very important sense, especially against mages, who had to rely on their ears to distinguish the mage's chants. After covering her ears, Nian Luyun stared at Mingdu, raising her guard to the highest. When Mingdu saw that Nian Luyun was on guard against him, he didn't say anything but stared at Nian Luyun intently. There must be a reason behind this abnormality. Seeing that Mingdu did not say a word, Nian Luyun also began to feel nervous. After all, Nian Luyun had personally experienced how wretched those guys from Chuanjin were. In particular, Long Ziling had been tricked by Chun Xiang before the match had even started. This made Nian Luyun even more wary. At that moment, her entire focus was on Mingdu. She did not even pay attention to the countdown. However, the moment the match began, Mingdu suddenly moved. He raised his hand and pointed behind Nian Luyun. It was common knowledge that when a person was overly focused, their thoughts would easily follow their target. Under normal circumstances, Nian Luyun would definitely not pay attention to Mingdu's small movements. But now, Nian Luyun's entire mind was on Mingdu. Any small movements from Mingdu would cause Nian Luyun to make a big move. As Mingdu raised his hand, Nian Luyun's heart tightened, and she hurriedly turned around. At the same time, Mingdu raised the staff in his right hand, and a thick bolt of lightning descended from the sky. Thunderstorm was Radiant City's most powerful single-target attack skill. With Radiant City's magic damage, even the thick-skinned shield warriors would not be able to withstand it, let alone Nian Luyun, a weak grandmaster of combat who had added points into agility. Boom! There was a loud sound. Before the poor Nian Luyun could react to what was going on, Mingdu blasted her into pieces and teleported her off the stage. Seeing the sudden change in the scene, Nian Luyun was at a loss, as if she did not know what had happened. Icy Jade rubbed her forehead, looking as if she had nothing left to live for. The expressions on the faces of the others were also incomparably complicated. What was sullen? What was helpless? It was vividly reflected on the faces of Icy Jade and the others. It could not be helped. Their abilities were clearly far superior to their opponents, but they did not even have the chance to attack before they were knocked off the stage. That kind of feeling of collapse was definitely not something an ordinary person could imagine. It could not be helped. The people from Chuanjin were definitely not the opponents of these Kung Fu kids. However, when it came to the rules of the game, these Kung Fu practitioners were still far from it. Looking at the expressions of Icy Jade and the others not far away, Wuji sneered. Humph, don't cry yet. You'll be crying later. F***CK. Seeing that the people from Chuanjin were playing tricks again, the audience was instantly enraged. What the F***CK is this? This is too shameless. Do you dare to fight for real? The angry audience waved the cans and mineral water bottles in their hands and shouted loudly, Chuanjin are shameless. Get out of the gaming circle. Chuanjin are shameless. Get out of the gaming circle. The curses went straight to the sky. If it were not for the security guards maintaining order, the people from Chuanjin would have been beaten to death on the spot. Faced with such a torrent of negative comments, the people from Chuanjin proudly cupped their fists towards the audience. Thank you. Thank you. We did not do enough. Of course, the ones who were having the most headaches were the organizers. Ever since the professional league was included in the Olympics, they had never seen such shameless people in so many years. What was even more infuriating was that these people's actions did not violate the rules. Even if they wanted to forcefully kick them out of the game, it would not make sense. Seeing that the crowd was in high spirits, swearing to get rid of Chuanjin, the organizing committee had to temporarily pause the game and hold a small meeting midway. 10 minutes later, after a vote by the organizing committee, Chuanjin's actions did not violate the rules. They could still continue the game, and the previous 2 games were still valid. However, before the game, they were not allowed to use any provocative words or trick. The rule of trash talking before the game had been maintained for so many years, but today, because of Chuanjin, they were forced to change the rules. This was definitely an unprecedented behavior. With regards to the decision of the organizing committee, the people from Chuanjin expressed their attitude to the audience. If we are not good enough, then we are not good enough. It has nothing to do with the rules. Even if we are not allowed to speak, we will still win. With just one sentence, they turned themselves from the cheater to the victim. The despicable behavior and shameless words really showed the audience what it meant to have no bottom line. A farce was a farce after all. After some commotion, the game continued. Who's going for the next game? After being defeated by Chuanjin 2 games in a row, the morale of the martial artists' Don't Cry team was low. There was a shadow in their hearts, and no one dared to go for the third game. It was not that they did not have confidence in their own abilities, but they were completely afraid of Chuanjin's shamelessness. After all, it was not shameful to lose to someone who was stronger than you, but it was shameful to lose to someone who was far weaker than you. Sigh. Seeing everyone's expression, Crystal Jade sighed and said, "This group of shameless people is just trying to hurt our morale. Looks like I have to go for the third game." Chapter 12-15. Seeing that their boss was about to step onto the stage, everyone said with tears in their eyes, "Big sis, don't get tricked by those shameless people. Don't worry." Crystal Jade said proudly, "In the face of absolute power, all schemes and rules are just paper tigers. We're counting on you." Everyone bowed to Crystal Jade. In Chuanjin's camp, Wuji rubbed his chin and asked the crowd, "Do you know how to completely defeat the opponent?" Completely defeat? How? Everyone was confused. Kill people, destroy their hearts. Wuji gestured with his hand over his heart and said, "They must be desperate now. In the third round, they will definitely try their best to win. We have to make them despair." So, everyone tilted their heads and looked at Wang Yu. "That's easy." Wang Yu clenched his fists and said, "Making people despair is my specialty." As he said that, Wang Yu selected the third round. Both sides had chosen their team members. At the same time, the host's voice rang out, "The next contestants are the Grandmaster of Combat, Don't Cry, Cold Spear, Crystal Jade, and the world's #1 Grandmaster of Combat, Iron Ox. Let's welcome the two of you." With a flash of light, Crystal Jade and Wang Yu appeared on the stage at the same time. Seeing the two people on the stage, the audience's restless mood finally calmed down. They said happily, "This time, we can finally watch a serious match." But someone said with lingering fear, "That big guy won't act shamelessly like he did in the previous rounds, right?" Guru Iron Ox is a famous expert. Logically speaking, all experts care about their reputation. He shouldn't be that shameless. But no matter how strong he is, he's still an expert from Chuanjin. Hiss. At this point, everyone began to worry again. Of course, everyone's worries were unnecessary. The reason why Chuanjin acted shamelessly was because they knew that they were not strong enough. That was why they took the edge. If all of them were as strong as Wang Yu, no one would miss the opportunity to show off in front of hundreds of millions of people. With Wang Yu's ability, if he had the time to think of ways to cheat others, he would have already finished them off. Simple and violent, that was Wang Yu's style. However, when the members of the Don't Cry battle team saw that Crystal Clear Jade's opponent was Wang Yu, they couldn't sit still any longer. Others might not know how ruthless Wang Yu was, but how could martial artists like them not know? Back then, when the 7 of them fought against Wang Yu, they were still beaten to the ground. Now that there was only Pure Ice and Jade, it would be a little tricky. Pure Ice and Jade were the same as Wang Yu. They were both arrogant and unruly people, but they had a firm heart towards martial arts. Failure wasn't scary. What was scary was the fear in the heart. Although she knew that her opponent was a strong person like Wang Yu, Pure Ice still pulled out a spear. The design of this spear was different from the weapon she usually used. This spear was fiery red, and there were 2 wings of fire at the spearhead. Light surrounded the body of the spear, as if it was wrapped in flames, giving it an imposing aura. When the Pure Ice Jade pulled out her spear, it exuded a faint aura of power. It's the Heaven Feather Phoenix Spear. As soon as Pure Ice's weapon appeared, Nian Luyun and the rest couldn't help but exclaim. This Heaven Feather Phoenix Spear was an epic equipment dropped by a level 100 boss Crimson Phoenix that Nian Luyun and the rest had worked together to kill in Skyplume City. Usually, Pure Ice used it to train her skills, so she never used it. This was the first time Nian Luyun and the rest had seen her use it. Her intention was obvious. She wanted to tell Wang Yu, "You don't have to hold back, I will go all out." Going all out was a form of respect for the opponent. In order to show his respect for Pure Ice's martial art, Wang Yu casually swapped his glove for a halberd. The halberd was black and shiny, as if there was a black dragon entrenched on it. Whether it was the appearance or the shape, it was extraordinary. This was the dragon halberd that Wang Yu obtained from killing Long Outian. After Wang Yu and Chopper had recast it, it had fused with Wang Yu's glove, becoming the dragon halberd form of the glove. Buzz! Facing the pressure of the Heaven Feather Phoenix spear, the dragon halberd let out a clear whistle and pushed back the faint aura. The atmosphere on the stage became serious because of the confrontation between the two. The countdown ended and the match began. She kicked the end of the spear and held it in her hand. Then, she leaped up and charged toward Wang Yu like a beam of red light. Wang Yu was calm and composed. Seeing Pure Ice take the initiative to attack, he calmly took half a step back, grabbed the end of the halberd with one hand, and knocked it upwards. Clang! Wang Yu's dragon halberd was heavy, and with a clear sound, it knocked Pure Ice's spear to the side. He then took a step forward, raised his left hand and hit Pure Ice's head. The Pure Ice Jade leaned to the side and stabbed her spear into the ground. Her legs kicked off the ground and she flew straight towards Wang Yu's back. She then swung her spear at the back of Wang Yu's neck. As if he had eyes behind his back, Wang Yu grabbed the dragon halberd and swung it behind him, perfectly blocking Pure Ice's attack trajectory. Bang! With a dull sound, the heavy dragon halberd smashed into Pure Ice's spear. Pure Ice, who was in midair, had nowhere to borrow strength and was sent flying. At that moment, Pure Ice landed on the ground with eagle stamp and swung her spear upwards, drawing an arc towards Wang Yu's back. Wang Yu crossed his legs, turned around and dodged the attack. Using his body as an axis, he swung his dragon halberd horizontally towards Pure Ice. Pure Ice knew that she was no match for him, and hurriedly jumped back a few steps to increase the distance between her and Wang Yu. Only then did she not get hit by Wang Yu's halberd. Amateurs enjoy the show, while experts appreciate the technique. No matter if it was the martial artists in the audience, or the younger generation of the martial artists, they all showed expressions of surprise when they saw the match between the two. In the eyes of normal people, the two had only exchanged one round of blows. But in the eyes of martial artists, it was extremely dangerous. If they were not careful, they could be stabbed in the vitals. Luckily, this was a game. If it was in reality, this kind of match would not be allowed. As the saying goes, a month with a stick, a year with a knife, and a lifetime with a spear. Out of all weapons, spear techniques are the hardest to learn. Killing and being killed are easy, but to be able to control and release the spear as freely as the two on the stage is extremely difficult. Wang Yu and Li Qingshan were both younger generation in the martial arts circle, and they were about the same age. Even if Pure Ice's spear technique was a bit childish compared to Wang Yu's, their martial arts made the elders on the stage feel that the younger generation should be respected. Elderly, your family has a good daughter. The old men on the stage all complimented the Li family's ancestor. How shameful! Elderly sighed. I still can't compare to that kid from the Wang family. Ha 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 ha! Old Cow rubbed the back of his head. His smile almost reached the back of his head. Humph! On the stage, Pure Ice coldly snorted, lifting something heavy as if it's light. Great skill, but I can't believe you've already reached this level. Why aren't you attacking me? Are you looking down on me? Chapter 12:16. Arrogant! Even though Pure Ice knows that she is no match for Wang Yu, she still dares to draw her spear. It can be seen that she is the kind of arrogant person who goes against the current. Provoked by Wang Yu's words, she became furious. She once again raised her spear and rushed towards Wang Yu. She was as clear as ice and as clear as jade, with a well-proportioned body and a handsome appearance. When she brandished her spear, it was either to the left or to the right, or to the front or to the back, up and down, like a startled swan, like a swimming dragon, Like Shirua, the spear in pure ice's hand is raised, bringing with it a sky full of spear shadows that cover Wang Yu. Like a torrential storm, Wang Yu is stabbed from all directions. However, Wang Yu is as still as a mountain. Facing pure ice's tide-like attacks, the dragon halberd in his hand is not panicked at all. He slashes and slashes. Even though his moves seem simple and crude, he is able to perfectly deflect pure ice's attack. From the beginning to the end, his feet did not move even half a step. Great skill appears clumsy, returning to the basics. Seeing Wang Yu's spear skills, all the kung fu experts on the stage are shocked. All of them were famous Wuling seniors. Although not all of their martial arts were spear techniques, but with 10,000 techniques as one, once one is mastered, all other will be mastered. When their martial arts reached this level, there was not much difference in any weapon in their hand. Although the attacks of the pure ice and jade hero were sharp, and the legends believed that they could block them all, but if they asked themselves honestly, there were probably not many people in the entire kung fu circle who could block all the attacks of the pure ice and jade hero as easily as Wang Yu did. A genius indeed lives up to his name. Seeing the fight between the two, not only the insiders, but even the audience watching the show were dumbfounded. Even though the two of them fought for a long time, they did not use a single skill and neither one of them lost any health. But no matter how amateurs they are, dodging attacks, predicting attacks and blocking attacks can still be seen from a gaming point of view. The one who moved was like the waves of the sea, penetrating through every opening, while the one who remained calm was like Mount Tai, dealing with a myriad of changes by remaining calm. Even though they were both using normal attacks, the level of appreciation and the technical content was much higher than the ordinary players' sword against sword, and child's brawl. At that moment, everyone had only one thought in their minds. Damn, are we playing the same game? Why do I feel like they're playing a wuxia action game? Pure Ice Jade's spear arts had been used from start to finish, but she still couldn't break through Wang Yu's defense. She was a little impatient, plus Wang Yu's dragon halberd was extremely heavy, giving off a sense of pressure. Not long after, Pure Ice Jade's spear arts started to become chaotic. In a moment of desperation, Pure Ice Jade grabbed the end of the spear and shook it hard, creating 9 spear shadows. 9 dragons' cloud-searching spear. Hee. Wang Yu smiled faintly, his left hand holding the halberd. His right hand suddenly grabbed forward, breaking through the 9 spear shadows and grabbing the Pure Ice Jade's spear. Get down! Wang Yu shouted, his hand suddenly exerting strength. Pure Ice Jade couldn't retract her strength in time, and was dragged into the air by Wang Yu. This is impossible. Pure Ice Jade's pupils shrank, she hurriedly let go of her hands, adjusted her body in midair, and threw a punch towards Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu took a deep breath and stomped his foot. Ha! With a loud shout, Wang Yu's right elbow suddenly struck out. At the same time, Pure Ice Jade seemed to be cooperating on purpose, and suddenly appeared in front of Wang Yu's elbow. Bang! With a muffled sound, Wang Yu's right elbow heavily smashed into Pure Ice Jade's chest before her fist could reach him. In the game, there's no such thing as a big chest means a big cushion. With this elbow, Pure Ice didn't even have time to make a sound, and was smashed into white light. Again, when playing Kung Fu, don't play in front of Wang Yu. Compared to in-game skills, Wang Yu was better at dealing with this. To put it bluntly, Pure Ice's every move, Wang Yu knew it better than herself. Her opponent had already predicted her moves, so no matter how she fought, she would still lose. System notification. Round 3, Motley Crowd, Iron Ox wins. The scene was dead silent, as if no one cared about this result. After a long time, the audience burst into enthusiastic applause. Actually, in this match, the majority of the audience didn't understand the meaning behind it. After all, the two didn't even use a single skill, and the whole match was a flat A. However, the exciting fight had already made up for that, leaving everyone shocked. This is the end? The host wasn't done yet and asked Wang Yu in surprise. Just now, was that the so-called kung fu? What was that last move of yours? One with the waist and horse. Wang Yu calmly replied and jumped off the stage. The audience once again burst into a wave of applause. Kung fu. I didn't think there would be such a thing in this world. Yeah. I really want to learn it. From then on, the audience finally looked at the ancient art of kung fu from the bottom of their hearts. Seeing the audience's eagerness to learn, the martial artists were so excited that their eyes were brimming with tears. They struck while the iron was hot, and brought out the signboards of their sects. If you want to learn kung fu, come find us, we are the orthodox martial artists. Orthodox martial artists. The audience glanced at the signboards of the Zhu family sect. Six Harmonies door, Hard Heart door, Swallow door. They immediately curled their lips. TSK, you can tell it's a third-rate sect. The group of martial artists spat out blood and collapsed. Big sis, what should we do next? Are we still going to compete? Killing people, Chuanjin had completely done it. Pure Ice Jade was the spiritual pillar of their team. This time, not only did Wang Yu defeat Pure Ice Jade, he also completely crushed everyone's confidence. At this time, the martial artists' Don't Cry battle team were even starting to doubt if they were a match for Chuanjin. Fight. Why aren't we fighting? Pure Ice Jade said. This is only the third round. Other than that Wang guy, their team has no other skilled players. Round 4, 13. Yes. G13 thought for a moment, then nodded heavily. G13's kung fu was not weaker than Pure Ice Jade. In the game, due to the difference in equipment, his overall strength was not too far off from Pure Ice Jade. On the other hand, other than Wang Yu, Chuanjin really did not have a worthy opponent. Of course, the quick-witted Wuji had already thought of this, and had already chosen his team members for the fourth round. Looking at North Cuu, who was slowly losing confidence, Wuji instructed, Old Yu, it's up to you this time. We've already won 3 rounds. In the next 2 rounds, we just need to stop them from pulling the score difference down. You know what to do. North Cuu nodded knowingly and smiled. Understood. Both sides had chosen their players, and with a flash of white light, G13 and North Cuu were teleported to the arena. Chapter 12-17. The countdown began and the match began. Ji Shur-san stepped forward, reaching out to grab Baiming Yuyu. Baiming Yuyu naturally knew that she was no match for Ji Shur-san, so she smiled and activated stealth. Seeing this, Ji Shur-san's expression froze. He hurriedly stood still and used his senses to sense Baiming Yuyu's position. After playing with Wang Yu for so long, how could Baiming Yuyu not know how these people who played kung fu could detect the position of a stealthy opponent? Seeing Ji Shur-san like this, Baiming Yuyu hurriedly turned around, not letting her attention fall on Ji Shur-san. Unfortunately, Ji Shur-san wasn't an idiot. He took out a staff and started swinging it around, trying to deceive Baiming Yuyu. The stage was so small. Very quickly, Ji Shur-san's staff reached Baiming Yuyu. Just as Baiming Yuyu was about to be hit, Baiming Yuyu plunged her head into the ground. Is she trying to kill herself? The audience didn't understand why Baiming Yuyu would do this. At this moment, there was the sound of a pebble falling into the water. Baiming Yuyu had actually dived into the ground. F***CK. Seeing Baiming Yuyu dig into the ground, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. Even the pro player's attention was attracted. Isn't this Earth Escape? I didn't think that Chuanjin would have such a ruthless person. We have to be careful. Clearly, the kung fu that Wang Yu was so proud of was not as intimidating as a skill in the pro player's eyes. As the only player in Chuanjin who could fly, Baiming Yuyu was an expert in the air, sea, and land. In terms of escaping ability, even Wang Yu would have to admit defeat. When invisible, Ji Shur-san could still rely on his killing intent to sense. When he couldn't, he could still randomly swing his staff. However, this earth escape was a skill that no one expected. Ji Shirsan naturally didn't have any way to deal with it. Just like that, Baiming Yu didn't fight Ji Shirsan head-on. Instead, she played hide-and-seek for a full 30 minutes. The pitiful Ji Shirsan swung his staff like a solo performance, almost going crazy. When the 30 minutes were up, the two left the stage with 0 points. Ji Shirsan and the other big guys couldn't help but cry. Nian Luyun and the others felt the same, their faces covered in tears. At this moment, almost half of the Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry battle team had already cried. Chuanjin's group of bastards had really committed a sin. This was definitely a textbook psychological attack. Who would have thought that the assassin, the king of PK, would be used to deliberately drag out the time? In the 5th round, it was Wuji's turn. When his opponent saw Wuji, he was already gnashing his teeth in hatred. He could not wait to beat up this shameless guy on the spot. After all, everyone knew that Wuji was the brains of Chuanjin. The bad ideas of the previous few matches were all his work. Even if they could not win the match, they could still vent their anger by beating up this B****starred. Naturally, Wuji wouldn't give his opponent the chance to do so. At the start of the match, when his opponent was eager to beat the **T out of Wuji, Wuji casually chose to surrender. The opponent's spirit had already reached the brink of collapse, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The audience booed. The first match, 3-1, ended like a farce. Everyone had a new understanding of Chuanjin's shamelessness. Other than the 3rd round, which was a duel between the strong, what were the other rounds? Other than being shameless, they were acting shamelessly. At this moment, everyone finally understood the deeper meaning of Wuji's words. Even if the rules are changed, we can still be shameless. The game developers watching the live broadcast from the game company could not help but sigh. It's a pity that these guys didn't come to be game developers. At the same time, jokes about Chuanjin in the game spread, such as, "Don't be too serious, what's the difference between you and Chuanjin," and so on. Chuanjin's notoriety spread far and wide, and it could be considered that Wuji's great wish was fulfilled. Even if they were to make **T, they had to make the stinkiest one. They had to be known by the whole world, and they had to be known by the whole world. Do you think we'll be beaten up by the audience if we go out now? In the lounge, the Chuanjin people also had a lingering fear. Previously in the game, no matter how many people chased after them, they would only die once. Now that they were in real life, if they were surrounded by people, how could they survive? There was a saying that went, the day one's dream was achieved was basically the day one's life ended. Everyone understood this principle. That doesn't include me. Wang Yu said proudly, I didn't play cheap in the match just now. That doesn't include me. I didn't even compete. Evildoers run wild laugh. Wuji said shamelessly, of course it doesn't include me. I admit defeat, they can't even stop me from admitting defeat, right? Bullsh *T. Mingdu pointed at Wuji and shouted, these shameless ideas were all your idea, you're the main culprit. Don't even think about getting involved, quickly think of a way. Wuji thought for a while and said, there is a way, why don't we choose a representative to go out and get beaten up? Makes sense. Everyone agreed. That representative has to be extremely ugly and hateful, then we can beat him up to vent our anger. At this point, everyone turned to look at Radiant City. Alright. Stop talking nonsense. Mingdu changed the topic and said sternly, how should we compete in the next match? It can't be the same as before, right? Wuji chuckled and said, there's no strategy for the next match, just one sentence. If you think you can win, then fight. If you can't, just run. Now that we have the upper hand, we can only leave it to fate as to how many points we can get in the second match. Leave it to fate, what do you mean? Everyone was puzzled. Wuji said, if we randomly send Old Cow out in the first match, we can get 5 points. If Old Cow doesn't fight in the last match, we might not get a single point, and we might even lose points, so we have to suppress them until the third group battle. Group battle. Everyone thought for a while and said, can we win if we fight as a group? In terms of overall standards, Chuanjin was far from Ice-Clear Jade's group. After all, the only person on Chuanjin's side who could take charge was Wang Yu. Group battle was not a one-man game. In the previous matches, everyone could still play tricks, but in the last group battle, they could not afford to be careless. So from the beginning, everyone's goal was to get more points in the first two matches, and then in the last group battle, they would play hide-and-seek with their opponents in the map. As long as they could drag out the time until the end, they would win. Who would have thought that Wuji would actually place his bet on the last match? Wuji laughed and said, they only have one Grandmaster of Combat profession. I have a strategy to deal with them in a group battle, but my strategy must have a key factor. What key factor? Chapter 12-18. The rules of the Pro League and the qualifiers were different. There were home and away games in the qualifiers. The home team could choose the map first, and the points were calculated based on the number of wins and additional point. For example, Chuanjin, who won the first match, not only had 3 points, but they also had 5 points. It was very troublesome to calculate, and teacher Nyo always felt confused when he calculated the point. Therefore, in the Pro League, the organizers changed the rules. The map selection was based on a rotation system. Although the home team had the right to choose the map first, the other team had to choose the map for the second match, and the third match would be rotated back. The point calculation became the most simple and crude way of calculating the number of people. If both sides tied, there would be no point. In other words, although the second match was decided by Chuanjin, even if Chuanjin could win all 5 matches, the opponent could still turn the tables if they didn't play well in the third match. But, Chun Xiang frowned. If we choose a large map for the second match and only run away, won't they see through our tactics? It won't be easy for us to play the third match. Chuanjin had decided from the start that their tactics for the second match would be the same as the first. If they could win, they would fight. If they couldn't win, they would follow their heart to the end. This way, the opponent in the third match would be on guard against Chuanjin's tactics. If that was the case, it was still unknown who would win. Wu Ji laughed sinisterly. What we want is for them to see through our strategy. Everyone. Even though no one knew what was going on in Wu Ji's head, but according to this brat's personality, he would only take advantage of others and not suffer losses. He was definitely up to no good, so no one was too worried. On the other hand, Pure Ice's morale was quite low. Ji Shi-san had already walked out of his pain. He scolded angrily, "What do we do? Those shameless people can act shamelessly in our home game. The map they chose this time will definitely be even more shameless." "It's okay." Pure Ice thought for a while, then waved his hand. "Even if they are lucky and can win all 5 matches, they will only get 8 points. Moreover, this match was all based on luck. It's hard to say if they can get more points than us. What if they cheated in the third round?" Nian Luyun raised her hand and asked with lingering fear. "Idiot." Pure Ice Jade glared at Nian Luyun. "Would you fall in the same hole twice? Moreover, the third match is a team competition. We've already decided on the setting, so they can't all go invisible and stall for time." Makes sense, makes sense. Everyone nodded in agreement. "That's why, for this match, we just need to be calm. We're going to place our bets on the third match." While speaking, Icy Clear Jade's face revealed a confident smile. The break was over, and the second match began. In the Pro League, the rule of the wheel battle was to randomly pick one of the 12 players from each team to go up. This kind of rule was actually quite disadvantageous to the Chuanjin sect. After all, there were high and low levels of skill in the Chuanjin sect. The highest level was the invincible Wang Yu, while the lowest level was the invincible Mu Zixin. This represented the super high and super low levels of the game. If they picked Wang Yu, then that was good, and they got 5 points. If they picked Mu Zixin, then everyone could only accept their fate. Just as everyone expected, Chuanzhen chose a setting that was very suitable for hide-and-seek, Lost Forest. Obviously, this group of people wanted to race hide-and-seek with Pure Ice and her team in the forest. To be able to bring out their shamelessness to this level, it must have been hard on these bastards. Of course, it was even harder on the author. Such a righteous bull, racking his brains on how to describe Chuanzhen's shamelessness, to the point where all his hair was falling off. If it was the shameless Mario next door, it would have been a piece of cake. The match began and the lights dimmed. The system scattered 2 beams of light, and began to choose the players from both teams. In the first round, the Motley Crowd team sent out Sword Daoxue, and the Grandmaster of Combat team Don't Cry team sent out Dragon Spirit. Of course, Sword Daoxue knew that he was no match for Dragon Spirit. With a countdown of tens of thousands, Sword Daoxue went invisible and ran into the depths of the forest. Dragon Spirit looked at the place where Sword Daoxue disappeared with a dumbfounded expression, and then sat down on the ground, not giving chase. Seeing that Chuanzhen was playing this trick again, the organizers felt a headache coming on. Originally, today's match was supposed to end at around 4 in the afternoon. If they let them drag it out, wouldn't it end at night? There was no helping it. They had already changed the rules once because of what happened with Chuanzhen. They couldn't possibly change the rules again. After all, there was already a 30-minute time limit. Changing it again would be too much. But this also caused the organizers to wake up. They definitely couldn't invite such a team to compete next time. It would affect the competition experience too much. After 30 minutes, both teams came out in a draw. In the second round, it was Exquisite Dream against Ji Shursan again. As an archer, Exquisite Dream ran faster than others. Exquisite Dream was also a special archer, so the result was obvious even without looking. When the match began, Exquisite Dream shot an arrow at a tree trunk. Then, with a flash of her body, a doppelganger appeared on the tree. Unable to let Ji Shursan climb up, Exquisite Dream raised her hand, and another doppelganger appeared on another tree. After a few leaps and falls, she left Ji Shursan far behind. After 30 minutes, it was a draw again. The current situation was still 3-1. The audience was completely used to the performance of the Chuanzhen team. Now, their only wish was for Wang Yu and Glacial Jade to be randomly selected. The two of them would have a more exciting match, so that they wouldn't have to sit there and watch a few hours of hide and seek. Damn it, even playing PUBG wasn't this tiring. No one knew if the system god heard everyone's prayers, or if the staff tampered with it. Finally, the third light beam fell on Glacial Jade. On the other hand, Chuanzhen chose Chun Xiang, who wasn't very good at running. Damn, why is it me? Obviously, as a warlock, Chun Xiang wasn't very good at one-on-one fight. Especially when the opponent was an expert like Glacial Jade, Chun Xiang felt a little guilty. If it was someone else, Chun Xiang could still run. But with the length of Glacial Jade's weapon, he would be able to run a few meters ahead of his opponent. Go, brother Chun, don't lose too badly. Wuji patted Chun Xiang's shoulder to cheer him on. Mingdu also echoed, I'm so envious of brother Chun, to have the chance to fight with a beauty. Yeah. If it's me, it'll be worth it even if I die, dying under a peony. To place one's pride began to recite a poem. Then you guys go? Chun Xiang stared at the two with a dark face. The three of them said in unison, De Chun, this is a chance given by the heavens. As good brothers, how can you take away someone else's love? Be brave, the heavens have the best plans. Chapter 12:19. On the field, Pure Ice carried her spear, and still had that unapproachable expression on her face. Humph! Seeing Chun Xiang opposite her, Pure Ice couldn't help but snort. In the eyes of Pure Ice and Jade, other than Wang Yu, the rest of the Quanjin sect were just a bunch of scoundrels. This was especially true for Chun Xiang. During the first match, this B***TCH's actions were far more despicable than any of the Quan Jin sex players. Using a child's emotions to get someone sent off the field, this kind of shameless behavior was even more hateful than diving on the field. With Pure Ice's arrogance, she didn't take this shameless person seriously at all. As soon as Chun Xiang entered the field, he was extremely careful, squinting his eyes at Pure Ice, silently calculating in his heart. When it came to running, Grandmasters of Combat were miles ahead of Warlock. Moreover, Grandmasters of Combat like Pure Ice liked to increase their agility, and they were more agile than normal people. If Chun Xiang ran, he wouldn't stand a chance, so he might as well fight with his life on the line, at least he wouldn't die too badly. Pure Ice's perception was quite strong. Being stared at by Chun Xiang's wretched eyes made her feel quite uncomfortable, and her mood was also very irritated. As soon as the match started, Pure Ice didn't say anything, raised her spear, and immediately swung it towards Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang squinted his eyes, seeing Pure Ice's figure rushing towards him. He hurriedly took a step back, then clumsily took a step to the side, at the same time stabbing his staff into the ground to support his balance. Pooh! Pure Ice's spear missed, stabbing into the ground beside Chun Xiang. Seeing this, Pure Ice was shocked. A line of question marks appeared on her head. Nian Luyun and the others were even more surprised. Didn't hit? Not hitting the opponent was completely normal in the eyes of normal players, but in the eyes of Nian Luyun and the others, it wasn't normal. Everyone was well aware of how good Pure Ice's spear art was. Although it could not be compared to Wang Yu's, it was still one of the best in the younger generation. Not to mention an ordinary person who did not know any martial arts, even the people present could not guarantee that they would be able to dodge Pure Ice's spear. Coincidence? It must be a coincidence. The doubt in Pure Ice Jade's heart disappeared in a flash. Her spear missed, but she grabbed the end of the spear with one hand and suddenly exerted force. The long spear swept horizontally towards the back of Chun Xiang's head. However, Chun Xiang seemed to know that Pure Ice Jade would do this. He immediately turned into a pool of blood and drilled into the ground a few meters away, once again dodging Pure Ice Jade's attack. He dodged it again. Everyone's pupils shrank. Pure Ice Jade missed twice in a row and was enraged. She raised her spear and was about to pierce Chun Xiang with a dozen holes. But at this moment, Pure Ice Jade felt her feet sink, and she was unable to move. Crystal clear Jade hurriedly lowered her head, only to see that a patch of thorny vines had sprouted out from under her feet, binding her feet tightly. Hee! Chun Xiang smirked and raised his staff. A green poisonous substance flew towards Pure Ice Jade hero. Seeing this, the Ice and Jade heroine's body suddenly flashed with a golden light, and the spring source poison was flicked to the side. Unbreakable Golden Body, the advanced skill of the warrior monk's golden bell shield, can block debuff attack. Everyone knew that Pure Ice and Nian Luyun were polar opposite. Nian Luyun was extremely reliant on her in-game skills, forgetting that she was a martial artist. Pure Ice, on the other hand, was too conceited, so she rarely used her in-game skills. This was the first time that everyone saw Pure Ice use a skill from the game. To be able to dodge two of Pure Ice's attacks, and even force Pure Ice to this extent, the Grandmaster of Combat, Don't Cry Battle Squad couldn't help but look at Chun Xiang in a higher light. Looks like this wretched guy really has some skills. Ha! After flicking away the poisonous mist, Pure Ice immediately yelled and activated her inner force. The thorny vines under her feet immediately broke. At the same time, Pure Ice flew up and jumped towards Chun Xiang's direction. Hua! Before Pure Ice could land, Chun Xiang turned around and ran backwards. At this moment, a black circle drilled out from the ground. Dark Barrier! Although Pure Ice had a lot of disdain towards in-game skills, she still had some understanding of the attributes of each class. Naturally, she knew the special effect of Dark Barrier. Shocked, she immediately used her spear to prop herself up from the ground and jumped out of the circle before the dark barrier rose up. Shwa! As soon as Pure Ice landed, she heard a strange sound. A circle of green mist spread out with Chun Xiang as the center. Seeing this scene, everyone revealed a horrified expression. Chun Xiang was rolling and crawling on the battlefield, his movements clumsy. However, from a game perspective, Chun Xiang had the upper hand at this moment. Especially the accuracy of his skills, even professional-level players couldn't help but take a deep breath when they saw it. Although the Warlock class had more AoE skills, their skills were not targeted. Moreover, the preparation time and skill activation time were very slow. Therefore, this class had a high requirement for the player's prediction and calculation ability. Especially when facing against a class that was relatively fast, the accuracy of their skills was pitifully low. Even professional-level players wouldn't easily let a Warlock go up on stage to fight one-on-one. As a Grandmaster of Combat and a martial arts practitioner, Pure Ice's agility was obvious to everyone. Her speed was not inferior to classes like Assassins and Archers. But when Chun Xiang faced an opponent like Pure Ice, not only did he not fall into a disadvantage, he even advanced step by step. Skill after skill, all of them hit. This kind of prediction and calculation ability was simply shocking. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was flawless. Who would have thought that this old hooligan who played dirty in the first match was such an expert? Not only the audience, but Pure Ice also saw Chun Xiang's Toxic Nova, and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Helpless, Pure Ice rolled on the ground, dodging the Toxic Nova's poison mist, and rolled towards Chun Xiang, who was not far away. Hee. Chun Xiang looked at Pure Ice with an evil smile, then turned around and ran back. As the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. Pure Ice and Chun Xiang had only fought for a few rounds, but it could be said that they were surrounded by danger. After being continuously tricked so many times, Pure Ice was also more cautious. Seeing Chun Xiang's expression, Pure Ice immediately gave up on the idea of continuing to chase and stood rooted to the ground. But just as Pure Ice stood up, suddenly, his feet sank again, and he was entangled by the thorns again. Me! Pure Ice secretly vomited blood. Motherf **Ker, this old B** starred, how dare he play tricks? Chun Xiang's entanglement of thorns had a cooldown of 20 seconds. Although the cooldown was long, compared to Pure Ice's internal surge's cooldown of 60 seconds, it was still relatively short. The entangled Pure Ice Jade really lost her ability to move this time. Young man, you are still too inexperienced. Chapter 12:20. What the hell is this? Seeing a group of monsters suddenly appearing around crystal clear jade, everyone was slightly taken aback. Those who participated in the closed beta could not help but shout, "Summon imps! It's actually summon imps!" Any player who participated in the closed beta would have heard of the skill Summon Imp. What they did not expect was that the guy who led an army of imps to sweep across the world was actually a wretched uncle from Chuanjin. However, just as everyone was shocked by Chun Xiang's skill, the next scene made everyone's jaws drop. Chun Xiang's imps could only attack with magic in their original state. In their demon state they were more of a tank. Now that they had evolved into evil spirits, their attacks could be ranged and melee, and they could also deal damage. Pure Ice Jade's great spear was abnormally fierce. Naturally, Chun Xiang didn't want to let his little brothers, who had worked so hard to level up, fight it head-on. Thus, he commanded a group of evil spirits to surround Pure Ice Jade and fire magic bullets from afar. Although the Pure Ice Jade was unable to move, her hands could still move. The long spear in her hands moved left and right, blocking in front and behind. Her movements were vigorous and her defense was flawless. Although the attacks from Chun Xiang's 10 evil spirits were concentrated, the magic bullets were all blocked by Pure Ice. What What the F***ck? What the F***ck is going on? What do you mean by there is no most abnormal, only more abnormal? What do you mean by there is always a higher mountain? This time, the audience could be said to have seen it for themselves. Even Chun Xiang was flabbergasted at this moment. Raising his staff, he did not know what to do. At this moment, Chun Xiang's control ended. Pure ice broke free from the comfort of her feet and jumped out of the encirclement. Chun Xiang was shocked and hurriedly commanded his subordinates to fight, attempting to forcefully stall Pure Ice. Humph! Pure Ice coldly snorted and stabbed her spear into the ground. Her hands suddenly channeled qi. Bang! A circle of flames burst out from Pure Ice's body. Chun Xiang's evil spirits were immediately sent flying. A rare skill for warrior monks, True Qi Ring. It can repel all enemies within a 500-meter radius and cause damage. Not waiting for the evil spirits to fly far away, Crystal Pure Jade immediately grabbed the spear that was stuck in the ground with both her hands and kicked out with both her legs. Pung pung pung. In order not to dilute the number of words, the seventh pung was omitted. Following a series of sounds, the Ice and Jade Beauty's feet landed on the heads of the evil spirits. At the same time, a line of words appeared on top of Crystal Jade's head. Awakening, Shadowless Kick. Clear Ice Jade was also in manual mode. Her attack power was not much lower than Wang Yu's, and she was using an awakened skill. After all, Chun Xiang was a cloth-armored warlock. No matter how strong the attributes of his underlings were, they were still based on Chun Xiang's own foundation. After taking two big moves from Pure Ice and Jade Heroine, the poor evil spirits had their heads blown off. Now that the evil spirit was dead, Pure Ice Jade pressed down on the spear shaft with both of his hands, giving up on his weapon, and flew towards Chun Xiang empty-handed. Chun Xiang hurriedly retreated. At this moment, Pure Ice Jade activated Burst Fist in midair and rushed towards Chun Xiang's back. Chun Xiang raised his staff and threw out a cloud of poisonous mist in an attempt to struggle. However, Pure Ice Jade knew that the opponent in front of her was cunning. She lowered her head to dodge the poisonous mist and reached out with both hands to grab Chun Xiang. Knee strike, grab, uppercut, levitate, chain kick, pursuit, dragon kowtow, landing. Finally, she stepped on Chun Xiang's chest, and her fists smashed into Chun Xiang's head. Sky-dominating fist dance. Pure Ice Jade's set of consecutive attacks were all system skills that had bonus attack power. She hit Chun Xiang from the sky to the ground. Although she didn't have any weapons in her hands, Chun Xiang was still beaten to a pulp by this set of attack. Third round, Grandmaster of Combat Don't Cry Battle Team, Pure Ice Jade won. The audience finally got what they had hoped for and saw an exciting duel. Pure Ice Jade still had the demeanor of an expert. Chun Xiang was also defeated with honor. After killing Chun Xiang, Pure Ice Jade turned around and put away the spear on the ground. She then changed into a pair of pink boxing gloves, and her expression became serious. It wasn't hard to see that this girl's arrogance had been ground away by Chun Xiang. How was it? How did it feel? Chun Xiang got off the stage. To place one's pride, and Mingdu immediately surrounded him and impatiently asked, "Being beaten to death by a beauty, you must be very happy, right?" Chun Xiang's face was blank, as if he had been beaten silly. Wang Yu was speechless. "Enough, you two. Brother Chun is an adult. He knows right from wrong. He won't be as cheap as you two." Before Wang Yu could finish, Chun Xiang finally opened his mouth with a wretched expression. "White ho." Wang Yu was puzzled. "Why is it white?" Hee. Chun Xiang chuckled, and made an expression of lying down and looking up. Thinking of Pure Ice's posture when she stepped on Chun Xiang, Wang Yu's face darkened, and he slapped Chun Xiang to the ground. "Go to hell." Pure Ice Jade won the last round, and was now standing in the arena. Chuanjin's contestant for the fourth round had also been chosen, Mu Zixian. Seeing that Mu Zixian was on their side, Wang Yu and the others couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Logically speaking, everyone was really afraid that they would have to choose Gao and Mingdo, those two B***cheese. With the quality of these two, it was hard to imagine what kind of shameful and conspicuous actions they would do when they got on the stage. Affecting the team's reputation was secondary. After all, Chuanzhen's reputation was already so bad that it did not matter if it was worse. Pure Ice Jade was a martial artist. Her family was watching from the audience. Openly flirting with the Li family's daughter? It would probably not be as simple as getting beaten up. As the last player in Chuanzhen, Mu Zixian was also very straightforward. Once on the stage, she immediately chose to surrender, and the Fighters Don't Cry battle team scored another point. Currently it was a 3-3 draw. Chuanzhen's side began to be in danger, and everyone prayed together. God has eyes, old cow is up this round. It was still the same old saying. God never opened his eyes, he only knew how to joke. With a flash of light, Chuanzhen's fifth player on the stage turned out to be Wuji. Wuji, can you do it? Seeing that their contestant was actually Wuji, everyone broke out in a cold sweat. Damn, no matter how unsuitable Chun Xiang was for 1v1, at least his damage output was high enough, and he was dirty enough. He also had a lackey to support him. Other than being dirty enough and having two invincible skills, Wuji did not have any other strong point. If this guy went up, he would probably only end up getting beaten up. Facing everyone's doubts, Wuji smiled faintly and said, "Sure, why not? I like to bully honest people." As he spoke, Wuji was transported to the arena. Pure Ice Jade raised her eyelids, clenched her fists, and got into an attacking stance. Chapter 12:21. The countdown ended. Pure Ice stomped her feet and elbowed Wuji. Hee. Wuji snickered, equipped himself with invincibility, and charged towards the ice-clear Jade Elite. Wuji was the most courageous person to play as a cleric to the warrior realm. Pure Ice reacted quickly. Seeing that Wuji had the invincibility buff on him, she knew that her attacks would not work. Thus, she leaped sideways and dodged Wuji's charge. I beg for mercy! With a loud roar, Wuji activated Martyrdom, and Pure Ice and Jade Beauty was involuntarily sucked in. Ha ha ha! Wuji laughed hysterically. He lowered his head and hugged Pure Ice's waist from behind. Then, he shouted excitedly, Lady, I don't ask to live together, but I ask to die together. It's worth it. While shouting, Wuji activated the cleric's reckoning skill. Bang! It was just a face-to-face encounter. Before anyone could react, Pure Ice was blasted into a cloud of white light by Wuji. At the same time, Wuji's HP was reduced to a single drop. F***ck. This B***th self-destructed. The audience sighed when they saw this. The cleric class was so shameless. Fortunately, it was a class with thin cloth armor, so its HP growth was not high. Even with all the stat points added, it was still mediocre. Otherwise, no one would be able to withstand being sucked in by this B***tch and exploding. Seeing this, the Chuanzhen students clenched their fists and said, F***ck, if I knew this would happen, I would have chosen the cleric class. I'm so envious that he can kill people in this position. Wuji killed Pure Ice and won another point for Chuanzhen. The score was pulled back to 4-3. On the stage, Wuji continuously healed himself a few times to replenish his HP. At this time, the fourth player from Don't Cry Squad had already jumped onto the stage. The match began. The Grandmaster of Combat was afraid that Wuji would turn around and run away, so he made the first move and pounced on Wuji. However, Wuji calmly gave himself another invincible buff. Under the punches and kicks of the fighter, Wuji unhurriedly cast the flight technique and flew up leisurely. Come down. Facing Wuji, who had been sent flying into the sky, the young fighter awkwardly waved his fists and feet in the air with tears in his eyes. Then, he collapsed and knelt on the ground. Encountering Chuanjin, this group of simple-minded kung fu youths had a terrible gaming experience, and their love for this game was incomparably deep. 30 minutes later, the two of them left the battlefield in a draw. The motley crowd battle team was completely annihilated, and the Grandmaster of Combat Don't Cry battle team was left with one member. With 1 point added, the score was pulled back to 4-4. During the intermission, everyone in Chuanjin gathered around Wuji and said, "It's a draw now. How are we going to play the third match?" Evildoers Run Wild, who had not been waiting outside the gaming cabin, could not help but say, "Why don't you let me go? It's so boring waiting here alone." No need. Wuji chuckled. "You're here to help. We, Chuanjin, have 11 combat members. We don't even have enough to fight ourselves. We can't let you go no matter what. We can do this. Fight like this? Will that work?" Hearing Wuji's tactics, the crowd could not help but exclaim, "No matter how good their defense is, it'll be a draw at most. They're not stupid." "It's because they're not stupid." Wuji smirked. "That's why they've already chosen their own graves." Everyone was speechless. At the same time, in the resting room of the Grandmaster of Combat Don't Cry battle team, Crystal Jade was cheering everyone on. "Everyone, keep your spirits up. We've already tied the score." "Oh." Ji Shur-san responded weakly. Although it was true that they had tied the score, after the battle just now, the frustration in everyone's hearts was getting stronger. Crystal Jade continued, "Everyone, give it your all in the next match. Let's try our best to turn the score around." "TSK." Ji Shur-san said unhappily, "What if they run again? I don't want to play hide and seek with them anymore." "Run? Haha." Crystal Jade laughed. "The choice of the setting is in our hands. This time, they won't be able to run away." At this time, someone said, "Sis, don't forget about that one guy. The setting is so small. If he attacks us, do you think we'll be able to escape?" "Are you stupid?" Crystal Jade glanced at that person. "As long as a few of us can stall that one guy for a few minutes, the rest of us will be able to wipe out the motley crew. When that happens, we'll fight 10 against 1. Even if we can't win, we won't be completely wiped out." "Oh." Hearing Crystal Jade's words, everyone revealed an expression of relief. Indeed, although Wang Yu was strong, everyone was also a martial artist. Even if they couldn't win, it wouldn't be hard for a few of them to stall Wang Yu. As for the rest of Chuanjin, they really didn't care about them. Thinking about this, everyone's eyes finally lit up with hope again. After the break time, everyone once again entered the gaming pod. It was the final match, and everyone was fully focused. For the third team match, other than to place one's pride, who couldn't defend and wasn't good at long-range attacks, all the other combat members from Chuanjin went up. At this time, Pure Ice and Jade had also chosen their location. The venue was simple, it was still a fighting ring. It seemed that this group of young fighters had been traumatized by Chuanjin. They didn't even dare to choose a bigger map for the team match. This group of people from Chuanjin had harmed a group of upright youths to this extent. They were the epitome of evil. Both teams went up. Chuanjin and Crystal Jade's group of Grandmasters of Combat were sent to the arena at the same time. On Chuanjin's side, there were men and women, young and old, tall and short, fat and thin, good-looking and ugly, mages and warriors, all kinds of shapes and colors, a group of strange shapes and sizes. On the other hand, Crystal Jade's group of Grandmasters of Combat lined up in a row. In comparison, they looked a lot more majestic. Neatly arranged, it always gave people a sense of shock. In fact, the audience knew that in terms of real strength, there were only a few that Chuanjin could fight. After a few matches, Chuanjin's style had been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Not to mention, there were really a lot of hardcore people who liked Chuanjin's shameless style. As the saying goes, the yellow fox or the black fox, the one who gets the mouse is the king. No matter what methods he used, it was reasonable to win. For a moment, the audience who originally supported the Grandmasters of Combat, Don't Cry team, actually began to split up among the supporters of both sides. The countdown ended and the match began. Crystal Jade gave Ji Shur-san and Yen Luyun a look. Both of them immediately looked over at Wang Yu. However, when the two of them saw Chuanjin's formation, they were immediately stunned. P.S. Oh, I went for a drink yesterday. I'm really tired today. I'm really sorry that I only have one chapter today. Chapter 12:22. Naturally, Chuanjin was not the kind of people who would fight head-on even though they knew they were no match for their opponent. As soon as they entered the arena, Chuanjin immediately split into two layers and stood in a circle. Wang Yu, Yin Lao-er, Bao San, and two assassins stood on the periphery, blocking Wuji, Chun Xiang, and the other long-range professions behind them. It had to be said that Wuji had superhuman leadership skills when it came to arranging troops. Currently, the 10 of them were intertwined in an offensive and defensive formation. Moreover, because it was a circular formation, the range of the formation was greatly reduced. The bows and magic staffs that extended from the frontline professions gave off a feeling that there was nowhere to attack. Icy Clear Jade and the others had wanted to divide Chuanjin and devour them, but they did not expect Chuanjin to not play by the rules and not give them a chance at all. As the match began, Chuanjin quickly occupied the center of the arena. Ji Shur-san and Yen Luyun exchanged glances and immediately charged at Wang Yu, attempting to drag Wang Yu away according to plan. However, just as the two rushed in front of Wang Yu, a black circle appeared under Chuanjin's feet. Immediately after, a dark barrier rose and surrounded all of Chuanjin's members. F***CK. Ji Shur-san and Yen Luyun were shocked and hurriedly retreated. Unfortunately, the person standing in front of them was none other than Wang Yu. These two had spent a lot of effort to drag Wang Yu away, but Wang Yu dragged them away with ease. Wang Yu let out a low grunt, his arms expanding and reaching forward through the dark barrier. He grabbed Ji Shur-san and Yen Luyun with each hand and pulled them back. Bang! The two of them were forcefully dragged by Wang Yu into the dark boundary and were then fixed on the spot. These two were no match for Wang Yu unless they were fixed. Now that they were fixed, Wang Yu naturally had no reason to let them go. He raised his hand and punched. 2 rays of white light rose. In less than a minute, Chuanjin had obtained 2 points. This, seeing Ji Shur-san and Yen Luyun's miserable state, Clear Ice and the others were dumbfounded. Meow. So Darkness Barrier could be used as a defensive barrier as well? The dark barrier had a long immobilizing effect. Moreover, the people Chuanjin was standing at the outermost perimeter of the barrier were all ruthless people. If they were immobilized, there would only be one outcome: death. He had seen people waiting for their prey, but he had never seen someone so blatantly waiting for their prey. Fortunately, the duration of the darkness barrier was only 8 seconds. When the darkness barrier disappeared, Long Zishue's figure flashed and rushed in the direction of Ming Jian Shui, planning to take advantage of the situation and enter. Chun Xiang chuckled and tapped his staff on the ground. Thorns rose from the feet of Chuanjin's people. In a moment of desperation, Yin Lao-er, who was next to Ming Jian Daoxue, smashed his tower shield onto the ground. He stuck out his middle finger from behind the shield and shouted, "Bastard!" Long Zishue was involuntarily sucked into Yin Lao-er's shield. At the same time, Ming Jian Daoxue raised his sword and ended Long Zishue's life. Ha ha ha! Wuji laughed and taunted Clear Ice, "Come at me if you want. If you can make it back alive, it's my loss." Hearing this, Clear Ice's face instantly turned frosty. It couldn't be helped. Clear Ice and the others were all grandmasters of combat. They were all close combat classes. With Chun Xiang's strong control, close combat classes had no way of surviving. Charging forward was definitely an act of suicide. After hesitating for a moment, Clear Ice ordered the others, "Everyone back off and act according to the situation." After receiving Clear Ice's order, the other grandmasters of combat all pushed to the edge of the ring. At this time, Wuji began to mock them again. "Do you think you'll be fine if you back off?" As he said that, Chun Xiang gripped his staff tightly and silently chanted, "Toxic Nova." Whoosh! A circle of poisonous fog floated in all directions. The ring was small to begin with. Under the restrictions of the venue, Chun Xiang's Toxic Nova became a full-screen ultimate skill. The grandmasters of combat could not dodge in time and were all poisoned. Their bodies were filled with the aura of forgiveness. Every one of them looked sickly and their movement speed was significantly reduced. At this time, the three long-range classes, Mingdu, Yang Na, and Exquisite Dream, began to attack the grandmasters of combat opposite them. Chuanzhen's group was standing in the center of the ring. With the attack range of the long-range classes, standing in this position, the attack range could cover any corner of the ring. In other words, the grandmasters of combat, don't cry, had nowhere to hide. Especially now that most of them were poisoned by Chun Xiang. Their movements were as slow as zombies. The reason why these grandmasters of combat could fight was because they could jump up and down. They were not just a little bit stronger than the others. Now that their biggest advantage had been taken away, they had completely become moving targets in the eyes of Chuanzhen's group. Even close combat classes like Bao San and Yin Lao Er had all pulled out their guns and started shooting at the grandmasters of combat. The grandmasters of combat were sullen. How they wanted to go up and beat their opponents to death. Unfortunately, these guys' arms were too short. If they fought in close combat, they would be controlled. They could only stand on the spot and let their opponents hit them. The biggest resistance they could do was to struggle for their lives. Watching her subordinates being killed by Chuanzhen one by one, Pure Ice felt an unprecedented sense of defeat. Originally, she wanted to rely on the terrain to kill all of Chuanzhen's players. In the end, she was tortured to death by the opponent's use of the terrain, if there were long-range classes on her side. If the setting wasn't the ring, various scenarios floated through Pure Ice's mind. In the end, she still returned to reality. Sigh. The defeated Pure Ice Jade sighed, and finally chose to surrender. System notification. Motley Crowd Battle Team defeated the Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry Battle Team 14-4 and became the champion of this amateur competition. At the same time, they have obtained the qualification to compete in the professional competition. The result of the competition was absolutely unexpected. No one in the audience would have thought that this group of shameless fellows from Chuanzhen would really rely on shamelessness to the end. They defeated the superhuman Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry Battle Team and became the biggest winner of this competition. However, the professional level players weren't too surprised. This was because, like Wuji, they had long seen through the weakness of the Grandmasters of Combat Don't Cry Battle Team. First of all, this team had a problem with their configuration. All of them were Grandmasters of Combat. In terms of lineup, they lost by half. Secondly, this team had a problem with their mentality. They thought that as long as they were strong, they would definitely be able to defeat their opponent. Even if this kind of team could fight their way into the professional competition, they wouldn't be able to last one round before being eliminated. Next up was the award ceremony. Under the boos of the audience, the group from Chuanzhen and the second and third place teams walked up to the stage. After a nonsensical speech, the host excitedly raised the microphone and asked Captain Wang Yu, "Captain Tai, did the result of this competition exceed your expectations?" Wang Yu was stunned for a moment before saying, "No, with our strength, winning the championship was within our expectations." Chapter 12-23. Championship, bah! Hearing Wang Yu's words, the audience raised their middle fingers in unison. What a bunch of shameless bastards. They only relied on crafty schemes to accidentally enter the professional competition group. Did they really think that professional experts were just there to eat rice? The despicable methods you guys are using are all leftovers from the pro players back in the day. A bunch of shameless bastards. In the gaming circle, professional leagues still attracted a lot of attention. After all, professional players did not usually show their faces. They only showed their faces during professional leagues. Not all players had the capital to watch the game live, so every time there was a professional league, the players in the game would stay in front of the computer to watch the live broadcast. This was the power of idols. Now in the game, every main city had a public arena. In the holographic mode, there was not much difference between watching the game in the public arena and watching it live. Of course, as a company that created games with all its heart, Longting Company would naturally not give up this opportunity to make money. Tickets to the public arena were also required, but compared to the high ticket prices in the live arena, it was much cheaper. But the players did not think so. Since everyone paid to watch the live broadcast, the competition team should at least let them get their tickets back. The shameless bastards of Chuanjin not only affected the game experience of their opponents, but also seriously affected the audience's viewing experience. As soon as the game was over, everyone clamored for a refund from Longting Company. As the saying went, the final right of explanation belonged to Longting Company. Naturally, it was impossible for them to refund the money. They just wanted to tell everyone that the result of the game had something to do with the organizer, so the players made a fuss on the forum. As the initiator, Chuanjin also became the target of public criticism. Overnight, Chuanjin became popular in the major game boards of Rebirth. Even the players who used to play online games as single-player games had heard of the notoriety of Chuanjin. Of course, the people of Chuanjin did not care about these false reputations. At this time, they had won the championship of the amateur group and were invited by Comrade Old Cow to eat together. Not only the martial arts legends, but also the group of Pure Ice and Pure Jade, who had been humiliated by Chuanjin today. 50 to 60 people sat together. It was a very strange scene. Old Cow's intention was very simple. He wanted to treat everyone to a meal. Other than celebrating Chuanjin's first championship, the most important thing was to let Crystal Pure Jade and the others sit down and get to know Wang Yu and the others, and not to worry about today's competition. Confucius once said, "Are you still young if you are not frivolous?" After all, they were all hot-blooded youngsters from martial arts families. If they suffered losses in the arena, it was inevitable that they would make up for it outside the arena. Wang Yu wasn't afraid, but Wang Yu's friends were just a bunch of weak, ordinary people without the protection of the game. Everyone ate together and talked things over. They were all friends in the future, so naturally, there wouldn't be any accidents. Actually, Clear Ice, Clear Jade, and Yen Luyun all came from big clans and received good education. Although they were proud and aloof, they weren't insensible people. They accepted their loss this time and didn't have any other thoughts. Now, with Wang Yu and his father, the two future leaders of the Kung Fu Circle, making peace, even if they couldn't calm their resentment, they immediately expressed their stance. As for the others, such as Ji Shisan, who had evil intentions, of course, didn't dare to provoke the Wang family, a leading force in the Kung Fu Circle, so they could only swallow their anger. After the meal, everyone shook hands and made peace. The worries of the Chuanjin people also dissipated. It couldn't be helped. No matter how fiercely the online players shouted, the keyboard warriors only dared to speak up. But for this group of people who played Kung Fu, no one had any confidence. It was already late at night when they returned to the hotel. It was raining outside. The rainy night in Linhai City was very beautiful. Wang Yu stood in front of the window, hugging Mu Zixin's waist. He looked at the outside world through the glass, and his heart was full of emotions. A year ago, when Wang Yu left home, it was also raining in this season. The difference was that at that time, Wang Yu was still a canary that had just been released from the cage. He didn't need to worry about survival, and he didn't have the slightest bit of freedom. Wang Yu's heart was at a loss, and he felt lost in life. In this year, Wang Yu had tasted too much pain, and he also gained a lot of emotions. Friendship, love, family, all of these were never contradictory. Everything depended on one's own effort, especially Mu Zixian, who taught Wang Yu how to survive, taught Wang Yu how to love others, and taught Wang Yu how to adapt to this prosperous and strange world. Perhaps in the near future, Wang Yu would return home and become the successor. But at that time, even if his life trajectory was the same as before, Wang Yu wouldn't be the canary of the past. A bird should look to the sky, shouldn't it? It's been a year. Wang Yu said lightly. Yes, it's been a year. Mu Zixian smiled, her face filled with happiness. Watching a boy who didn't even know how to survive become a man of indomitable spirit, there was nothing more satisfying than this. Thank you, Wang Yu said softly. Thank you too. Mu Zixian hugged Wang Yu tightly. Actually, I really wanted to write the words the end of the story here, but the story wasn't finished yet. It wasn't my style to leave it unfinished. Of course, more importantly, I didn't want people to misunderstand me as a blade smuggler. It was still raining. Rainy days always made people fall into a deep sleep. The sun came out, and the entire world seemed to have been washed, giving off a fragrant scent. When I came to the arena again, there were many more spectators than the previous 2 days. This was to be expected. The previous 2 days were amateur matches. Everyone could just watch the livestream in-game. Spending money to watch the amateur matches was a waste of money. Reality proved that these people had great foresight. At this time, the spectator stands were filled with support groups from various teams. Banners were unfurled, and it was a spectacular sight. Society, my brother X, doesn't say much. Brothers from all corners of the world, always wins after 100 battles. The slogans of the fans behind the various teams were also dazzling to look at. The professional fans and the support groups for amateurs were of a completely different dimension. Wang Yu and the others were dumbfounded. Awesome, awesome! Society, society! The group of people wiped their cold sweat and entered the arena. Seeing Chuanzhen's people enter, someone in the arena shouted, "Chuanzhen, get out of the gaming circle, Motley Crue, get out of the pro scene." At first, there were only a few people, but then more and more people shouted. In the end, tens of thousands of people shouted in unison. The scene was deafening, and the shouts made Chuanzhen's people feel smug, their hearts filled with pride. Chapter 12:25. At this moment, the MC introduced, "The next player from Bloody Battle Team is, indifferent to fame and fortune." Indifferent to fame and fortune. As the judge announced this name, the players in the audience were stunned. Then, they became excited and the entire arena was filled with exclamations. "It's her!" The people from Chuanzhen were also slightly shocked. Wuji said calmly, "Looks like Bloody Battle Team is going all out this time." "Who is this?" Wang Yu asked with a dumbfounded face. Ever since he came to this arena, Wang Yu did not know any of the so-called experts. Wuji said, "Indifferent to fame and fortune, tranquil Ziyuan. Have you heard of them?" "Yes, it's from Zhuge. I've learned it before," Wang Yu replied. Wuji was speechless. "The two I mentioned are names. The one we saw with Dugu Jiuqiang a few days ago is called Tranquil Ziyuan. This person is indifferent to fame and fortune." Tranquil Ziyuan. Wang Yu thought for a while and said, "Is he the god of war?" "Yes." Wuji nodded. "Could this person be the god of war?" Wang Yu asked again. "That's right." At this moment Mingdu came over and said excitedly, "She is the legendary god of war. She is my idol." "I see." Wang Yu came to a realization. The players in the gaming circle always liked to call those who were strong as gods. However, ordinary experts would only show their talents in a certain game. After all, it was only a flash in the pan. When they moved to other games, they would be replaced by new experts. Only the so-called God of War and the God of War stood at the top of the gaming world. No one had ever shaken them. One had to know that there were no fixed conditions to become an expert in the game. For example, Wang Yu was invincible in holographic mode. If he switched to mouse mode, he could probably find anyone to beat him up. Even the experts in LOL could only show off in PlayerUnknown's battleground. However, these two people could be considered top-notch experts no matter which field or game they were in. It could be seen that their overall qualities were terrifyingly high. She was the benchmark of the industry. It was no wonder that even the people of Chuanjin were shocked when they heard her name. In the arena, the competition had already begun. Indifferent to fame and fortune, Xiao Qin looked at Lei Gongdang indifferently. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "Are you going to admit defeat, or do you want me to do it?" Mages were a natural counter to warriors, especially the cumbersome shield warriors. Despite having a body full of defense and HP, mages were nothing more than live targets against high-damage classes. Lei Gongzhuang met someone who was indifferent to fame and fortune. It could be said that he had met his nemesis. However, no matter what, Lei Gongfang was an expert who had been famous for a long time. Even if his opponent was an expert who was indifferent to fame and fortune, he couldn't possibly not even dare to draw his sword. Mocked by indifferent to fame and fortune, the Thunder God Lord's face darkened and he charged toward indifferent to fame and fortune. At this moment, the God of Thunder was using his signature move, the double sky chasing slash. As long as one was hit by him, they would either die or die miserably. You overestimate yourself. Indifferent to fame and fortune smiled and pointed forward with his left hand. A blue light flew toward the Thunder God Lord. The Thunder God Lord hurriedly raised his shield to block the blue light. Crash! The sound of glass shattering rang out. The advancing Thunder God Lord was instantly frozen into an ice sculpture by the blue light. At the same time, a line of words floated above Indifferent's head, awakening, frozen seal. What a powerful magic priority! Seeing this scene, Wuji couldn't help but furrow his brows. In Rebirth, the main factor that affected a skill's priority was strength. As such, warriors and knights had the highest priority out of all the classes. On the other hand, ranged classes had relatively lower priority. This was especially true for the warrior's charge skill. Although it was a low-level skill, its priority was one of the highest among all warrior skills. Indifferent to fame and fortune, a mage had casually sealed a tank like the Thunder God Lord with a finger. This priority was truly shocking. Humph! After sealing the Thunder God Lord in ice, Indifferent to fame and fortune sneered. The magic in her right hand had already finished gathering. With a wave of her hand, a huge rock fell from the sky and smashed into the Thunder God Lord. Boom! With a loud noise, the Thunder God Lord's sculpture was smashed into pieces. It turned into a white light and flew out of the arena. In an instant, the audience was silent. Instant kill. The number 1 shield warrior on the server was actually insta-killed. This damage was simply interesting. Wang Yu rubbed his chin and recalled the 2 skills that Indifferent to fame and fortune had just used. He had a playful smile on his face. The Thunder God Lord was one of the strongest in the Sky Dragon team, other than Ninjing Ziyuan. If even he was insta-killed, then the players behind him couldn't even withstand a single blow. In the next few matches, the Sky Dragon team's players were all defeated by Indifferent to fame and fortune. There was no one who could last a single round. It couldn't be helped. Not only was Indifferent to fame and fortune's damage shocking, but her prediction was also unheard of. No matter how the opponent tried to dodge, they couldn't avoid her skills. Even Chun Xiangmingdu, a master of prediction, couldn't help but be speechless. The audience couldn't help but exclaim, "Is there no one who can deal with her?" A lady had consecutively challenged 4 experts from the Sky Dragon battle team, and there was even an existence like Lei Gongding. Although there was no gender distinction in the game, seeing a lady like Hua Xiong from the Si Shui Pass, instantly killing all the challengers, the audience felt a little disappointed. After all, in most people's hearts, women playing games were always weaker than men. Of course, the reason why the people from Chuanjian said this was because they had placed huge bets on the Sky Dragon team to win. The sudden appearance of such a person from the Bloody team caught everyone off guard. Yes. Wuji looked at the Chuanjian people, who were filled with indignation, and said, "Isn't Old Bull just one? No sh*t." Everyone said angrily, "If Old Cow could go, would we be in such a rush?" Seeing these guys scratching their heads, Wuji smiled and said, "That depends on whether or not Ningjing Xuan is lucky enough to go up on stage. Although I don't know who's stronger between the two of them, since they're both famous, they can't just go up there and be instantly killed. What are you waiting for? Pray." When the old superstitious Chun Xiang heard this, he rolled his eyes at everyone and drew a cross in front of his chest. Then, he clasped his hands together and started chanting, "Sage Confucius, Taoist ancestor, bless me, Amit Ba, Amen." The others followed suit and closed their eyes. It had to be said that Chun Xiang, that old fellow, had some skill. Just as the few of them were muttering to themselves, the fifth member of the Sky Dragon battle team had already been chosen. The host looked at the player who was about to go up and his expression froze. Then, he shouted excitedly, "The exciting moment is here. The next player from the Sky Dragon team is Ningjing Xuan." Chapter 12:26 God of War, Tranquil Xuan. The audience went into an uproar again when they heard this name. It was a professional league after all, and it always brought all kinds of surprises. Who would have thought that not only would the mage god be invited, but the god of war would also be invited? Who was stronger between the god of war and the mage god? This was an unsolved mystery in the hearts of all the veteran players. However, it was obvious that the relationship between the two experts was not ordinary just by looking at their names. In all these years, the players had never heard of either of them defeating the other. There were many inferences on the forum, but everyone had their own bias when it came to who was stronger and who was weaker. Inferences without evidence would only cause a fight. That was why many veteran players dreamed of a real fight between the two legendary experts. Who would have thought that their dreams would come true in this arena today? Aya! Wang Yu saw Tranquil Xuan on the stage and said in surprise, "Isn't that him? Who is it?" Swoosh! As soon as Wang Yu said this, the surrounding audience immediately looked over, their eyes filled with anger. "The god of war, Tranquil Xuan. We met a few days ago." Seeing the murderous gazes from the surrounding audience, everyone was speechless. "Old Cow, can you not be like this? You make it sound like we're not humble at all." "Oh." Wang Yu ignored the crowd's gaze and said to himself, "Oh yes, it's him. He really wanted to challenge me. He's very courageous." The Chuanjian people were speechless for a moment, then hurriedly explained to the audience, "We don't know him." In the arena, the match had already begun. However, the two of them did not attack immediately. Indifferent to fame and fortune, stared coldly at Tranquil Xuan. "You dare to fight me?" "Ah Ming, don't misunderstand," Tranquil Xuan said anxiously. "I'm doing this for money." "Humph." Indifferent to fame and fortune snorted coldly. "Doing this for money? I think you've been bewitched by that vixen." Hearing indifferent to fame and fortune, the audience instantly quieted down. Oh my God, there was actually an unexpected reward from watching a match. F***ck. There's gossip. Wang Yu stared at the two of them with a gossipy expression, his ears perked up. Tranquil Xuan broke down. "Ah Ming, this is a live broadcast." Humph. Indifferent to fame and fortune, he waved the staff in his hand and said coldly, "Since that's the case, let's cut the crap and see who's stronger." As he spoke, he raised his left hand, and the ice seal flew straight towards Ningjing Xuan. Ningjing Xuan's face tightened. She gripped the hilt of her sword with both hands and swung it. A do-chi slash shot out from her sword and hit the ice seal. Crash! A soft sound echoed as the ice seal collided with the battle chi chop, freezing the battle chi-chop into a crescent moon shape. However, the ice seal was also blocked. Just as Ningjing's Yuan unleashed her combat aura slash, Indifferent finished gathering magic in his right hand. He raised his staff, and a lightning bolt as thick as a bucket descended from the sky towards Ningjing's Yuan. Ningjing's Yuan was still stunned by Do Chi slash, so it was too late for him to dodge. Seeing that he was about to be hit by Indifferent to Fame and Fortune's violent lightning, Ningjing's Yuan didn't put away his sword. Instead, he used the momentum and used Rising Dragon Slash. Rising Dragon Slash was a ground-to-air skill, so when he used it, he needed to jump a little bit forward. Therefore, there was a short distance of movement. However, this short distance was just enough to dodge the violent lightning spell. Wow! The audience was fascinated by such a spectacular dodge skill. Amazing! Even Wang Yu was surprised to see Ningjing's Yuan use Rising Dragon Slash to dodge the skill at the crucial moment. In Rebirth, melee classes, especially warriors, had a long cooldown and cooldown. However, players could perform combo attacks according to the way they used their skills. This way, they could cancel the cooldown of the previous skill and the cooldown of the next skill. For example, Charge followed by Whirlwind Slash used this principle. Do Chi Slash followed by Rising Dragon Slash wasn't a very high level of skill. However, to be able to use Rising Dragon Slash to dodge the attack at such a short distance was definitely an instinctive reaction. For a player to be able to make such a reaction was basically the same as a boxing expert like Wang Yu. His body could instinctively parry other people's attack. It was an extremely high level of skill. To be able to reach this level of skill in the game was an eye-opener for Wang Yu. As expected of the legendary god of war, he had some skill. Seeing Ningjing's Yuan fly into the air, Indifferent Fame and Fortune pointed his staff at the ground and cast an ice mirror under Ningjing's Yuan's feet. As long as Ningjing's Yuan landed, he would definitely be frozen. However, Ningjing's Yuan seemed to have expected Indifferent Fame and Fortune to have such a move. He grabbed his sword with both hands in midair, pointed the blade downwards, and immediately released a Collapsing Mountain. Collapsing Mountain had a 500-meter displacement range, and Indifferent Fame and Fortune were only this distance apart. Ningjing's Yuan passed through the ice mirror under his feet and smashed towards Indifferent Fame and Fortune. Boom! Ningjing's Yuan landed on the ground. Indifferent Fame and Fortune had already floated backwards like a feather. At the same time, a strange magic circle appeared under Ningjing's Yuan's feet. Prison Circle. Ningjing's Yuan frowned when he saw this. Without saying a word, he buried his head and charged towards Indifferent Fame and Fortune. At this time, Indifferent Fame and Fortune was already at the edge of the ring. He could not retreat, so he flashed behind Ningjing's Yuan and raised his hand to attack. However, Ningjing's Yuan spread his arms and used a Whirlwind Slash, strangling Indifferent Fame and Fortune. At the critical moment, a blue protective shield that looked like an eggshell enveloped Indifferent Fame and Fortune. Magic Shield. Bang bang bang, Ningjing's Yuan's giant sword continuously smashed onto Indifferent Fame and Fortune's magic shield, making soul-stirring sounds. Crash! Finally, after Ningjing's Yuan's Whirlwind Slash, the eggshell on Indifferent Fame and Fortune was also shattered by Ningjing's Yuan's attack. Ningjing's Yuan raised his sword and smashed it towards Indifferent Fame and Fortune's neck. Indifferent Fame pulled his hands, and a green light blocked Ningjing's Yuan's attack. He himself also floated backwards a few meters, once again increasing the distance between him and Ningjing's Yuan. The audience was silent. What was a battle between experts? What was a battle between gods? The performance of the two people on the ring was absolutely incisive. Indifferent Fame and Ningjing's Yuan had only fought for a few rounds, but it could be said that danger was everywhere on the ring. Both of them were top-tier experts, and both had the ability to kill each other in an instant. In the battle just now, if either of them had reacted half a beat slower, It was very likely that the other party would have found an opening and taken care of him with a set of skills. Although the battle between Wang Yu and Pure Ice Jade was also very intense, playing kung fu and playing a game was still worlds apart. Everyone watching the battle between Wang Yu and Indifferent Fame and Cold Jade was purely for the entertainment. They could not experience it themselves. Chapter 12:27. In the end, this was a battle between pro players. Compared to the amateur team, it was much higher. Especially the shameless tactics of a certain team. In comparison, this was what a true match should be like. Just as everyone was exclaiming about the strength of the two on stage, and looking down on Chuanjin's group, Indifferent Fame and Fortune glared at Ningjing Zhuan. "Are you really going to fight me?" Ningjing Zhuan hesitated. "Since I'm on stage, I have another identity. I have to give it my all and fight to the end. This is my responsibility and my duty." "Then do your duty." Indifferent Fame and Fortune angrily put away his staff and jumped off the stage. Only Ningjing Zhuan was left with a stunned expression. Seeing this scene, everyone had a surprised expression on their faces. "That's it? No matter what, we have to find a winner." "That's right. Giving up in the middle of a fight? This is no different from writing a bad ending." All of a sudden, the audience started discussing unhappily. Wuji sighed. "Women really aren't suited for competitions." "What did you say?" Yang Na, an exquisite dream, glared at Wuji angrily. Wuji hurriedly said, "I'm talking about a woman who doesn't care about fame and fortune. She's too emotional and always brings her emotions into the competition. Such a person is like a ticking time bomb. She might be powerful, but it's hard to say who she will bomb. As for you guys are different from her." Humph. Hearing Wuji's explanation, Yang Na and Exquisite Dream were satisfied. Wang Yu came over from the side and said, "You mean they are not women? Is that so?" Yang Na and Yang Na's faces darkened as they each pulled on one of Wuji's ears. Wuji wailed, "Stupid cow, what grudge do I have with you?" Indifferent Fame and Fortune left in the midfield. Bloody Team completely lost their last bit of hope. Originally, Bloody Team was already heavily injured. Now that they were up against Sky Dragon, it was easy to imagine what would happen if they lost their last bit of support. Even in the last team battle, they couldn't salvage anything. With experts like Lei Gongdai and Ningjing Zhuan, the Sky Dragon team easily crushed the Blood Red team into a pile. The people from Blood Red War Flag were sent home in the first round. The audience was the most pitiful. The odds were 1-2. Everyone was ruthlessly cheated by this group of fellows. Only Chuanjin's group was very excited. They said happily, "Old Chi is really a good brother. In order to make money for us, he lost so badly. When I see him next time, I must treat him to a drink. There's no need to reschedule. Let's just finish the competition today." At that moment, a familiar voice rang out from behind the Chuanjin team. Everyone quickly turned around and saw Blood Red War Flag standing behind them with a lonely expression. However, his mood was not as bad as they had imagined. Come. Old Chi, take a seat." To place one's pride, a sensible child, it was not easy for him to win once, so he was in a good mood. He quickly moved his butt to the side and let Blood Red War Flag sit down. Blood Red War Flag did not stand on ceremony and casually sat in the middle of the Chuanjin people. "What do you think? Did you earn a lot?" Blood Red War Flag asked everyone with a smile. Although the Chuanjin people were shameless, they were still very loyal. In such a situation, it was not good enough to bet on Blood Red to lose. Hearing Blood Red War Flag's question, they immediately laughed awkwardly. "Ha ha. No, we actually bet on you to win too." "Ha ha." Blood Red War Flag laughed. All right. Do you think I don't know you guys? We all know the situation of our team. Even if it was me, I wouldn't bet on myself to win." "Then how much did you bet?" Wuji asked with a smile. Blood Red War Flag laughed sinisterly. Hee, I'm the one who opened the bet. What do you think? The Chuanjian people were stunned for a moment, then sighed. You've learned bad things. To minimize the losses. Didn't I learn this from you? Blood Red War Flag laughed bitterly. This way, our team will have the money to recruit a few more experts. My condolences. Wuji patted Blood Red War Flag's shoulder and comforted them. This was the reason why Chuanjian did not play with the big guilds. The big guilds might seem like they had the advantage in numbers, but only they themselves knew how difficult it was to accomplish such a feat. Chuanjian had more than 10 people. If they earned some money, they could just casually distribute it. Everyone would gain something. With so many people in the big guilds, no matter how much money they had, they would not be able to split it evenly. In the end, the money they earned would be invested into the guild's development. So much effort and no profits. The guys in Chuanjian would not do such a thing. The competition on the field was still ongoing. The battle between professional experts had always been simple and direct. In most cases, a single mistake could determine the winner. Only the team competition would take up some time. But overall, the competition was still progressing smoothly. The competition lasted from morning until 10 at night. The professional competition was finally over, and 15 teams advanced to the next day's competition. Among them, Sword Against the Heavens team was still defeated by Dark Moon team in the third round due to their lack of foundation and lack of coordination with the experts. At this point, only a motley crew was left of Yu Hui's 3 teams. They were almost completely annihilated. Yu Huiqing, who had been buzzing on the forum, also fell from his pedestal, and his reputation declined day by day. Originally, it was a great honor for a main city to have 3 teams in the professional league. In the end, 2 professional teams were defeated in the first round, and the remaining team was notorious. Such a main city naturally did not have a high evaluation in the hearts of the players. On the way back to the hotel after the competition, Wang Yu and the others met the Dark Moon team again. Eliminating Yu Huiqing's team in the first round made this group of guys very confident, especially Death Dark Moon, who took the initiative to provoke. Did you see that? Yu Huiqing's professional team is not our opponent. You motley crew better pack up and get lost. Don't let us meet you on the field. Of course, this level of provocation was nothing to the guys in Chuanjian. In the face of Death Dark Moon's provocation, not only was everyone not angry, but Wuji laughed and mocked. If you are afraid, just say it. Why are you yelling below the stage? We are not your girlfriend. We will stand there and let you hit us without fighting back. You! Death Dark Moon's face turned black after being exposed by Wuji once again. He said fiercely, "You guys are just stubborn." Wuji smiled and said, "Hee, some places are harder. Unlike you, you hit your girlfriend when you can't get hard." The word hit was emphasized. Death Dark Moon said with red eyes, "Do you want to die? Come, I'll say the same thing again. Try and punch me." Wuji once again stretched his face forward. Me. Death Dark Moon raised his hand and was about to hit. At this time, the Dark Moon team members hurriedly rushed up and dragged Death Dark Moon away. "Let me go, I want to kill him!" Death Dark Moon shouted while struggling. Chapter 12:28. A Thought for Eternity. Chapter 12:29. Team Dark Moon was just a small interlude. Other than Death Dark Moon jumping up and down, it didn't affect anyone else's mood. At the end of the day, all 30 professional teams took to the field. After witnessing the new mental outlook and brand new condition of their old rivals, the players of the various teams who returned to the hotel were all on high alert as they researched strategies to deal with them. After all, it was a brand new mode. The change in operating mode had a huge impact on a person's strength. Everyone was a professional player, and they couldn't afford to fight unprepared in this kind of situation. On the way back, seeing that all the teams had a positive attitude, the Chuanjian team also became nervous. This was especially so for Ming Jian Daoxue. After sneaking around for a while, he came back and asked, Wuji, look at the pro players. Are we still going out to play tonight? What else can I do if I don't play? Wuji asked. Researching tactics. Daoxue said. Bullsh *t. Wuji said with disdain, the highest level of tactics is to adapt to the situation. Once the routine is fixed, the tactics will become a dead technique. Then what do you mean? Daoxue said with a face full of black lines. There's a bar not far from here. I heard there are a lot of pretty girls there. Who wants to go? Take me. Take me. Very quickly, the group of people came up with a strategy to pick up girls. This bunch of trash. Looking at the group of troublemakers, Wang Yu shook his head. At the same time, in the Hall of 9 States, the captain, 5 Lakes 4 Seas, held a small stick in his hand. He was pointing at the names of the various teams and analyzing tactics with his subordinate. Team Skyfire didn't have any outstanding points this time, but their top player Samadhi True Fire's fire magic is superb. We still have to be careful. More than half of Team Red Dream are girls. Don't be too ruthless when fighting. If you meet that Hong or Green, then go for it. Why? The team members asked in confusion. 5 Lakes 4 Seas said with disdain. A man mingling with a group of girls and you're asking why? Makes sense. Everyone nodded. If there was a chance, then go for it. If there wasn't a chance, then create one. As for the Sky Dragon squad, 5 Lakes 4 Seas said, I didn't expect experts like Ningjing Jiyuan and Lei Gongfang to be poached away by them. We have to deal with them, especially War God. We have to be on our guard. But if he's alone, we don't have to worry too much. In the end, they were still the #1 guild in the national server. Their words were filled with confidence. They even dared to look down on an existence like War God. At this moment, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks, who had been silent all this while, asked, Boss, according to what you said, there's no need to worry about this or that. Doesn't that mean that we're going to win the championship again? Then why did you call us here? Become the champion? 5 Lakes 4 Seas smiled faintly and said, These old opponents were beaten by us all the way here. Of course, we don't have to worry. The one we need to be the most cautious about is this team. As he spoke, the stick in 5 Lakes 4 Seas' hand went straight to the corner of the wall. Everyone followed the stick of the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas and saw a bunch of messy photos pasted in the corner. The photos showed a bunch of wretched-looking guys, and at the bottom was the introduction of the team, Motley Bunch. Seeing this group of guys, everyone could not help but laugh. Boss, are you crazy? What's there to be afraid of with this group of guys? They're just a bunch of amateurs. That's right. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks also agreed. A bunch of guys who play dirty. You can't be thinking that we'll fall for their tricks, right? That's right. 5 Lakes 4 Seas pointed at the photo of Wuji on the wall and said, This guy is called Wuji. Everyone must have heard of him. I know. He's the current leader of Chuanjin. Wasn't the previous leader, Dugu Shaoling? Still, as they spoke, 3 Mountains 5 Peaks thought of their days at 3 Fiends Manor again. That's right. 5 Lakes 4 Seas said, This Wuji is known as Endless Poison in the pugilistic world. Although his reputation is terrible, he's a true master of tactic. Whether it's small-scale guerrilla warfare or large-scale battles, he hasn't lost a single battle. It's said that Yu Huiqing resisted the attacks of the other major cities under his command. It can't be that exaggerated. When the team members heard that, their faces were filled with disbelief. How could such an amazing person be an amateur? 5 Lakes 4 Seas said calmly, Those who don't believe me can go and watch their previous match. See how they defeated a strong opponent despite being weak. If you can't see it, you can go to 3 Mountains 5 Peaks later to find out how 3 Fiends Manor disappeared. 3 Mountains 5 Peaks revealed a strange expression when they heard that. There's also this person. As 5 Lakes 4 Seas said that, he pointed at Mingdu's photo with his small stick. Chuanzhen's #1 wizard, Mingdu. His nickname is Li Jicheng. He's arrogant and violent. Most of Chuanzhen's notoriety comes from this guy. He's that Dragon Knight Li Jicheng? Cut the crap. Dragon Knight is Zhen Jibing. His name is Bai Di Qingjian. He's a sworn enemy of Mingdu. I see. 5 Lakes 4 Seas then pointed at Chun Xiang's wretched photo and said, "This is Ji Chuanxiang. His nickname is Meticulous Strategist. Everyone should have seen how good this guy is." Yes. Isn't this the scariest pro in Chuanzhen? Everyone nodded when they saw Chun Xiang's photo. Although Chun Xiang was the most wretched, this guy not only had the most OP skills in the game, but he was also able to toy with an expert like Pure Ice and Jade Hero in the palm of his hand. He had left a deep impression on all the professional players, and they unanimously regarded him as the most fearsome expert of the Quan Zhen sect. The scariest? 5 Lakes 4 Seas laughed coldly. He took down Wang Yu's photo from the wall and spun it in front of everyone. Then, he said solemnly, "Everyone, remember this. This person is the scariest in Chuanzhen." Haha, isn't this the acrobatic grandmaster of combat? Can he be better than Chun Xiang? Everyone laughed when they saw Wang Yu's photo. In the eyes of this group of gaming geeks, no matter how good a martial art was, it was not as good as the best skills in the game. You'll know when you fight them. 5 Lakes 4 Seas hung Wang Yu's photo on the wall again and said, "In short, these 4 are the top 4 troublemakers in Chuanzhen. If you meet them, you must be careful. Otherwise, don't blame me for not warning you when you die. As a pro player and the strongest champion team, if you lose to these amateurs, your reputation will be tarnished by your fans. Do you still need me to remind you?" Hearing this, everyone sat up straight and nodded. Chapter 12:30. As a public figure, fans were his livelihood. If they scolded him, he had to endure it no matter how unhappy he was. He couldn't just send an apology video and say, "If I let my fans down, my whole family will die. My millions of fans are my family." Even someone as shameless as Nyo would at most rob the sofa a few times to take revenge on society. The above is the author's standpoint. If it involves someone, I'm sorry for speaking so frankly. If you don't like it, you can come and hit me. My fists are more straightforward. Compared to writing books, my fists and feet are more professional. Then, let's get back to business. The next day was the second round of the professional competition. Excluding the 15 teams that were eliminated yesterday, plus the motley team that had a bye in the first round, there were 16 teams left at this time. In the cheers and curses of the audience, as for who they were cursing, everyone knew, all the teams entered the arena again. It was also the first time for Chuanzhen's group to sit together with professional masters. After a round of selection, those left on the stage were the best of the best. At this time, everyone was full of momentum and ready to go. In contrast, Chuanzhen's group was more and more sloppy. As usual, it was still the random selection mode. Just as the host announced that they were ready to start selecting the preliminary team, a voice suddenly came up from the player's seat. "I want to challenge." Challenge? Hearing this voice, everyone was slightly taken aback. In addition to the random selection mode in the professional league, team players also had the right to challenge. Everyone could choose a team that they wanted to challenge from the participating teams and then send a challenge request. Of course, the challenge was targeted. It was a bit like revenge. Under normal circumstances, everyone was in the circle. Everyone would see each other all the time. Even if they were enemies on the field, the relationship between them was also good. No one wanted to easily offend others. Moreover, the word challenge had always been initiated by the weak against the strong. Anyone who cared about face would not take the initiative to challenge the weak team. The winning rate would not be too high, so there was not much conflict. Few people would bring their emotions into the game. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw Death Dark Moon pointing at Wuji's nose and shouting, "Dark Moon Team wants to challenge Chuanjin." Damn! Hearing Death Dark Moon's words, everyone was dumbfounded. You're a professional team challenging an amateur team. Don't you have any shame? Could it be that he wanted to turn the tables on who's more shameless? Yes, the Dark Moon battle team's move is obviously half the battle. The host was stunned for a moment, then cut the camera to Wang Yu and asked, "Captain Tai, do you dare to fight?" This host is also sinister enough. He asked, "Do you dare to accept the challenge? Is there anything in this world that Chuanjin doesn't dare to do?" Moreover, the challengers now are the scumbags of the Dark Moon battle team. Wang Yu replied without thinking, "Why wouldn't I dare?" At the same time, the host announced, "The Motley Crowd battle team accepts the challenge. The first match, the Dark Moon battle team versus the Motley Crowd battle team. The match begins now." Crash! In the auditorium, the audience was boiling with excitement. Damn it, this motley crew was shameless, wretched, and lowly. In this kind of situation, facing a pro-level expert's challenge, they actually dared to accept the challenge. Such manly behavior really made everyone's jaws drop. Damn it, this Dark Moon battle team is worse than a mob. That's right. In the game, the entire arena was soundtracked. Everyone in Chuanjin could hear the audience's discussions and cheers clearly. Everyone in Chuanjin was speechless. Is this a compliment or a scolding? Wuji sneered. Whether it's a compliment or not, it's time for us to show some real skills in this game. Be more spirited later and fight to the death. Got it. Everyone began to rub their palms. Since the Dark Moon battle team was the challenger, the Dark Moon battle team chose the map first in the first one-on-one match. In the first one-on-one match, in order to speed things up, it had always been an arena setting. The Dark Moon battle team was no exception. The first match was also this setting. In this game, Chuanjin vowed to destroy the Dark Moon battle team, so they used nuclear weapons in the first game. As the scene on the arena switched, Death Dark Moon and Wang Yu were teleported to the arena at the same time. Death Dark Moon's profession was a warrior. On a small map like the arena, the warrior had an absolute advantage. After all, the long-range professions couldn't kite. The melee professions were no match for the warrior. Agility professions like the Grandmaster of Combat and the Assassin were also very limited in their positioning. Seeing that the first player on Chuanjin's side was the Grandmaster of Combat, Death Dark Moon couldn't help but sneer a few times. As soon as the game started, Death Dark Moon withdrew his sword, leaned over, lowered his head, and charged directly at Wang Yu. According to this routine, the Grandmaster of Combat would inevitably retreat or move to the sides to avoid the collision. At this time, Death Dark Moon only needed to receive a whirlwind indiscriminately to kill the opponent. However, seeing Death Dark Moon charging over, Wang Yu snorted coldly. Instead of retreating, he charged toward Death Dark Moon. Death Dark Moon was shocked. He quickly cancelled the collision and wanted to activate the whirlwind in advance. Cancelling the collision skill would reveal a flaw, so he couldn't receive the whirlwind indiscriminately. Showing a flaw in front of Wang Yu was no different from courting death. The moment Death Dark Moon cancelled the collision, Wang Yu activated his internal energy. He moved sideways and flashed to the left side of Death Dark Moon. He used his feet to trip him. At the same time, a pair of big hands with the light of Tiger Strike pressed on the back of Death Dark Moon's head, forcefully pushing back Death Dark Moon's whirlwind. The priority of the grab skill was originally higher than other skills. Wang Yu also activated his internal energy to strengthen Tiger Strike into Tiger Descends the Mountain. The priority was even more amazing. Bang! Death Dark Moon, whose body was unstable, was pressed to the ground by Wang Yu's claw. Wang Yu was a man who loved his wife. He didn't have a good impression of a scumbag like Death Dark Moon. Naturally, he wouldn't show any mercy. After Death Dark Moon fell to the ground, Wang Yu lifted his foot and stepped on the back of Death Dark Moon's head. Bang! Before Death Dark Moon realized what was going on, his head was crushed by Wang Yu. He turned into a white light and returned to the team. From the time the two started to the end of the match, it was less than 3 seconds. Death Dark Moon responded to his name and entered the arena. Judge's notification. First round, Motley Crowd Iron Bull wins. Hearing the prompt, the audience was dumbfounded. Damn! What happened just now? I don't know. How did Death Dark Moon die? It was too fast. I didn't see it clearly. What happened? Chapter 12:31. Putting aside his character, as a professional player and the captain of the Dark Moon team, Death Dark Moon was still quite strong. Even if he wasn't a first-rate master, he was still hovering around the quasi-first-rate. Even the professional masters present couldn't be 100% sure that they could defeat Death Dark Moon on such an occasion. However, such a professional player was instantly killed by an amateur player. Everyone present didn't even understand how Death Dark Moon died. It was really unbelievable. Just as everyone was discussing the cause of Death Dark Moon's death, the big screen replayed the process of Wang Yu killing Death Dark Moon in slow motion. In slow motion, Wang Yu's movement was already so fast that it was hard to capture, but everyone could roughly see the process of Death Dark Moon's death. Before they saw it clearly, everyone just felt that it was unbelievable. However, after seeing it clearly, everyone's mood instantly became inconceivable. He dodged the collision sideways, tripped his feet, and used Ferocious Tiger Strike to press the unsteady opponent to the ground. This set of movements didn't sound difficult, but to be able to dodge the opponent's skills in a high-speed collision and perform such movements at the same time, the difficulty factor was no less than pulling the driver out of the window in a moving car. Such quick and accurate movements, as well as godlike reflexes, were simply unheard of by everyone. Especially the last kick that Wang Yu gave to the back of Death Dark Moon's head, it made everyone feel the ruthlessness of Wang Yu's attack. Yo! Ningjing Xian saw the replay on the screen, raised his eyebrows and asked Dugu Jiuqiang calmly, Manager Yi, I heard that Xuanzhen and you guys used to be enemies in the apocalypse? Haha. Dugu Nine Spears laughed and said, That's right, those bastards have been chased and beaten by us quite a bit. Ningjing Xian smiled faintly and said, Unless the Grandmaster of Combat wasn't among them at that time, I'm willing to believe that you guys were chased and beaten up. Dugu Jiuqiang's face turned red, and he showed an awkward expression. Otherwise, it could be said that he was an expert among experts. He could even tell from this. Just when everyone was surprised by the battle just now, the players of the second round between the Mob Battle Team and the Dark Moon Battle Team had also been spread to the arena. The player for the second round of the Dark Moon Battle Team was called Drifting Dark Moon. This kid was tall and had red hair, black heavy armor, and he was holding a brown giant shield in his hand with the words, Crescent Moon Tensho carved on it. Holy shit! Is this kid so flashy? Seeing Drifting Soul Dark Moon's appearance, this image involuntarily popped up in the audience's mind. However, when everyone's eyes fell on Evildoer's Run Wild's face, their minds were filled with question marks. F***CK, this doesn't make sense. Didn't this kid go up in the first round? Why did he jump up in the second round? It seemed that in order to wipe out the Dark Moon Battle Team, Xuanzhen was also ruthless. They let Wang Yu go up in the first round and Evildoers Run Wild in the second round. Obviously, they didn't want to leave the opponent a way out. Seeing Evildoers Run Wild in the arena, the host also involuntarily rubbed his eyes. After looking at the list of players, he recovered and quickly said, The second round, Dark Moon Battle Team Drifting Dark Moon vs Mob Battle Team Evildoers Run Wild. Evildoers Run Wild? As soon as the host said this, the audience's jaws dropped. This is the legendary Evildoers Run Wild. F***ck. What is the relationship between this kid and that guy just now? Evildoers Run Wild was the biggest boss in Rebirth. He alone fought against the existence of the whole world's guild. Anyone who played the game had heard of the name Evildoers Run Wild. Even the professional players couldn't help but be amazed when they heard the name Evildoers Run Wild. They didn't expect the legendary #1 businessman to look like this. Drifting Dark Moon was a little afraid when he saw Evildoers Run Wild's appearance. However, after knowing that his opponent was a businessman, he couldn't help but return to his showy self. The match began. Drifting Dark Moon couldn't help but mock. "You are a businessman. What are you doing here instead of doing business?" In the eyes of normal people, players who didn't level up in the game but focused on doing business were not doing proper work. The strength of such players generally came from a set of good equipment. However, this was a professional arena. The gap between professional masters and ordinary players couldn't be made up by equipment. Evildoers Run Wild pointed his finger at Drifting Dark Moon and said with a smile, "Looks like you are very confident. Come, Daddy will let you make one move first." What a joke! Drifting Dark Moon retorted, "I'll let you make 3 moves first. Then I won't be polite." The evil Heng Xing grinned, then leaped towards the Drifting Soul Dark Moon. Drifting Dark Moon was a professional master. Seeing Evildoers Run Wild rushing over, he calmly raised the giant shield in his hand to protect himself. At the same time, his other hand hid the sword behind the shield. However, at this moment, a large hand flashed from the side at an unbelievable angle. The shield was buckled on Drifting Dark Moon's face. At the same time, Evildoers Run Wild screamed, "Didn't you say you would let Daddy make 3 moves first? Hiding a sword behind the shield, you're not being kind." As he said that, Evildoers Run Wild stepped on the back of Drifting Dark Moon's knee. Drifting Dark Moon involuntarily knelt forward. Immediately after, Evildoers Run Wild's hand forcefully pulled back. Plop! Drifting Dark Moon felt the world spin around him and fell to the ground. After falling to the ground, Drifting Dark Moon was shocked. He hurriedly raised his shield to protect himself. Who knew that Evildoers Run Wild would turn around and crouch behind Drifting Dark Moon's head? His right hand reached out and grabbed Drifting Dark Moon's distinctive red hair. He lifted it up and slammed it into the ground. Dong. 1 move. Dong. 2 moves. Dong. 3 moves. Evildoers Run Wild counted as he slammed. After 3 moves, although Drifting Dark Moon's health did not drop much, he was shaken to the point of seeing stars. Although the evildoer Heng Xing and Wang Yu were blood-related brothers, their personalities were completely different. If it was Wang Yu who was provoked, he would at most kill the other party with a single punch, giving the other party a quick death. However, the evildoer Heng Xing's way of doing things was a bit like torturing his opponent. Dong dong dong. With a muffled sound, Drifting Dark Moon's head was smashed into the ground by Evildoers Run Wild time and time again. As the #1 merchant in the game, Evildoers Run Wild's equipment naturally went without saying. In particular, Evildoers Run Wild's most prominent grab skill was maxed out. Moreover, the opponent was in a collapse state. If he could not quick recover, he would not be able to use even half a skill. Poor Drifting Dark Moon was like a ball in Evildoers Run Wild's hand. No matter how he struggled, he could not escape from Evildoers Run Wild's clutches. Looking at the health bar on his head dropping bit by bit, Drifting Dark Moon regretted for the first time that he was a tank. Chapter 1232. Bang! 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 Evildoers Run Wild meticulously smashed Drifting Dark Moon's head on the floor. This extremely rhythmic sound was like a drum. Every time it sounded, it was shocking. Looking at the lifeless Drifting Dark Moon and the expressionless Evildoers Run Wild, the audience felt chills down their spines. Finally, under the abuse of Evildoers Run Wild, Not only was Drifting Dark Moon physically tortured by evildoers run wild, but his spirit was also greatly traumatized. At this time, Drifting Dark Moon also knew that he had no chance, so he involuntarily chose to surrender. System notification: Motley Crowd Battle Team Evildoers Run Wild 1. Evildoers Run Wild stood up with an innocent smile on his face. Looking at the innocent face of Evildoers Run Wild, the audience felt a chill in their hearts again. This bastard is definitely a devil. At the same time, their impression of Chuanjin's group changed again. Meow, this is the arena of professional masters. Winning 2 consecutive rounds with an overwhelming advantage, this group of guys seems to be not as simple as being shameless and nasty. After losing 2 consecutive rounds, the members of the Dark Moon battle team were already panicking. Originally, this group of guys thought that the Motley Crowd battle team was just a group of pushovers. Therefore, in order to teach this group of arrogant guys a lesson, they challenged the Motley Crowd battle team, who knew that when they fought, it was not the case at all. This group of guys was actually more brutal than the other. In the first round, Death Dark Moon lost inexplicably. In the second round, Drifting Dark Moon lost extremely miserably. It was unknown what would happen next. Who's going for the next round? At this time, the members of the Dark Moon battle team had lost their previous arrogance and began to push each other. After all, these guys were professional masters, and they were still very clear about their identity. The opponent was just a group of amateur players. It was not glorious to win, and it was even more shameful to lose. If they were killed like Drifting Dark Moon, how could they survive in the gaming circle in the future? How about Xiaoyu, you go? Everyone looked at each other, and their eyes finally fell on the only girl in the team, Zhuge Xiaoyu. Me? Zhuge Xiaoyu was shocked. Why me? Everyone said, that's because you're a girl. They probably won't be that ruthless, right? Zhuge Xiaoyu was speechless. Indeed, there weren't many female players in the game. No matter how rude a person was, he would still be a gentleman in front of a female player. No matter how cruel his opponent was, he couldn't possibly kill a girl. Sigh, all right. Looking at her companion's pleading eyes, Zhuge Xiaoyu had no choice but to nod in agreement. A beam of light flashed and Zhuge Xiaoyu was teleported to the arena. At the same time, Mingdu also went up. When Mingdu saw that his opponent was a lady, he could not help but reveal a perverted smile as he stared at Zhuge Xiaoyu. F***CK. Upon seeing Mingdu's appearance, everyone from Quanzhen was shocked. Everyone knew about Mingdu's personality. His threat was directly related to his opponent's appearance and gender. If his opponent was a man, the more attractive he was, the worse he would die. If his opponent was a woman, the more attractive she was, the less threatening she was. Although Zhuge Xiaoyu's appearance was average in real life, her character in the game was alluring. Was Mingdu going to be defeated in the third round? F***CK. Just then, Bao San said agitatedly, I told you, why don't you let me go? Wuji pursed his lips and said, if you go, I'm afraid we won't have any luck with women. Trust Old Li, he should know his limit. At this moment, Zhuge Xiaoyu also felt Mingdu's passionate gaze. Being stared at by such a guy made Zhuge Xiaoyu's hair stand on end. However, considering that it was a competition, Zhuge Xiaoyu held back her disgust and winked at Mingdu. Zhuge Xiaoyu's winking didn't matter, but Mingdu got excited. His eyes wandered around Zhuge Xiaoyu's body even more intensely. Not to be outdone, Zhuge Xiaoyu also sent a signal to Mingdu. The competition had not started yet, but everyone could smell the strange smell in the arena. If they were not in the competition, the two of them would probably go and get a hotel room right away. Finally, the competition started under the impatient gaze of the audience. Zhuge Xiaoyu smiled and stopped making eye contact with Mingdu. Instead, she hooked her finger. Mingdu went up to her with a dazed expression. I can't watch anymore. Wang Yu and the rest of Quan Zhen covered their faces and broke down. What the hell is this? It's so embarrassing. The Dark Moon players were dumbfounded. Drifting Soul Dark Moon exclaimed, F***CK, that works too? If I knew, I would have done the same. The others looked at Drifting Soul Dark Moon and said with certainty, if you had done that just now, I'm afraid you would have died a worse death. Drifting Soul Dark Moon was speechless. On the other hand, the members of the 9 States team looked at 5 Lakes and 4 Seas speechlessly. Boss, is this the terrifying master of Chuanjin that you were talking about? 5 Lakes and 4 Seas said awkwardly, misjudgment, it's purely an accident. Zhuge Xiaoyu was also a mage. Just when everyone was dumbfounded, Mingdu had already stepped into Zhuge Xiaoyu's attack range. Seeing that Mingdu had stepped into her attack range, Zhuge Xiaoyu's eyes suddenly tensed, and her expression became serious. Then, she raised her staff casually, and a green light hit Mingdu's body. At the same time, a line of ellipsis appeared above Mingdu's head. Silence Spell. A rare skill that could make the target lose the ability to chant for a certain period of time. Its specific attributes were similar to the priest's sacred fire. Everyone knew that the mage profession relied on skills. Without the ability to chant, one was basically a useless person. Even a top-notch mage master would be a target that could not fight back without the ability to cast spells. Huh? Is this kid that useless? Seeing that Mingdu was so easily silenced, Zhuge Xiaoyu was a little surprised. Then, she was overjoyed. She raised her staff to condense an ice spear and threw it at Mingdu. However, at this moment, a strange smile appeared on Mingdu's face. At the same time, he made a strange hand gesture at Zhuge Xiaoyu with both hands. Zhuge Xiaoyu was slightly stunned. Suddenly, the scene before her changed. When she reacted, she was already at the place where Mingdu was just now. Bam! Immediately after, Zhuge Xiaoyu's waist seemed to be hit by something, and she could not help but take a step back. The health bar on her head dropped by 1/3, and she was also slowed down at the same time. Zhuge Xiaoyu quickly looked down and saw that there was an ice spear stuck in her waist. It was the one that she had thrown just now. Before Zhuge Xiaoyu could figure out what had happened, Mingdu, who was not far away, smiled wretchedly and made a strange hand gesture with both hands. Boom! Chapter 1233. System Notification. Motley Team Mingdu won. Ha ha ha! At the end of the game, Mingdu's mute state was refreshed and lifted. Mingdu proudly waved to everyone under the ring, then he laughed and left the ring. Returning to the team, Mingdu shouted with a smug face, "See that? This is called beating her own game. That silly girl really thinks she is very charming, haha." Hearing Mingdu's words, the others finally understood Mingdu's purpose. Logically speaking, Zhuge Xiaoyu was also a professional level master, no matter what. Although Mingdu was strong, there was still a gap between him and a real professional master in terms of skills. Facing Zhuge Xiaoyu, there was naturally no guarantee that he could win. Therefore, after Mingdu came on stage, he first revealed a flaw to let Zhuge Xiaoyu think that his honey trap was successful. Then, when Zhuge Xiaoyu let down her guard, he attacked her unprepared and won in one fell swoop. Zhuge Xiaoyu was also sullen. In a real fight, she might not lose to Mingdu, but she was outsmarted by her own cleverness. It was really tragic. Amazing, amazing. This group of guys from Chuanjin always liked to use conspiracy as wisdom. After knowing Mingdu's true intentions, they all gave a thumbs up. At the same time, 5 Lakes 4 Seas also explained to his teammates like a wise man in hindsight, trying to justify his inference. However, 5 Lakes 4 Seas teammates didn't buy it. Instead, they curled their lips and said, "We all understand the reason, but isn't that kid muted? How can he still cast spells?" "Well," 5 Lakes 4 Seas said awkwardly, "I don't know. It may be related to his strange gesture." In short, we can't underestimate this guy. Morale was a very wonderful thing. Even in the online game, which was supported by attributes, morale directly affected the performance of combat power. In fact, no matter what, the Dark Moon team was also a professional level master. Not to mention anything else, their mentality had been professionally trained. Compared with amateurs, it was less likely that their morale would be affected by failure. However, the 3 games they lost were really too strange. In the first game, the captain was killed in seconds. In the second game, his teammates were killed. In the third game, his teammates dug a pit for themselves. Losing so inexplicably, even the professionals couldn't sit still at this moment. The mentality of everyone in the Dark Moon battle team had completely collapsed. At this time, the players of the Dark Moon team were like frightened rabbits. They were afraid that the opponent would come up with more excessive means. In the next 2 games, the players of the Dark Moon team could only hide in the corner, shivering, and did not dare to fight back when they were attacked by the players of Chuanjin. In the end, they ended the first battle with a tragic score of 0-5. As the saying goes, good news doesn't leave the house, but bad news travels 1,000 miles. This was the first time in history that a professional team had challenged an amateur team and ended up losing. Such a glorious feat was naturally sung by the players. A few days ago, the slogan of the players was still, "Don't be too serious." At this time, it had become, "Don't be like the Dark Moon team." In the lounge, everyone in the Dark Moon battle team looked gloomy. They didn't expect to be beaten up like this by Chuanjin's group. It should be known that for a team like theirs that had the support of an owner, everything they did had to be done in accordance with the contract. Taking the initiative to challenge Chuanjin's group was purely the personal behavior of this group of guys. It was not written in the contract. If they won, it would be fine. The owner would gain both fame and fortune. Maybe they would even be given a bonus for this matter. However, if they lost, they would have to be responsible for it themselves. It was a taboo in the industry to cause the team's performance to decline because of personal behavior. It was likely that even their wages would be deducted. "Boss, what should we do now?" Everyone in the Dark Moon battle team gathered together and set their eyes on Death Dark Moon. After all, this idea was proposed by the captain of Death Dark Moon. They couldn't let everyone suffer with him. Although Death Dark Moon was a bit impulsive, he was not brainless when he calmed down. Touching his chin and thinking for a moment, Death Dark Moon muttered, "Has everyone noticed that the strength gap between the players of this motley team is a bit obvious? If you put it this way, it seems to be true." Listening to Death Dark Moon's words, everyone seemed to think of something, and their eyes suddenly lit up. "Isn't that right?" Judging from the previous game, the 2 guys in the first and second games were abnormally strong. They gave their opponents no room to fight back at all. The strength of the few people in the later games was obviously a bit weak. Not to mention the mage who won by deceiving people. Just looking at the opponents in the last 2 games, if their team did not blindly defend, they might not necessarily lose. There was also a strength gap between normal professional team members. However, since everyone could be in the same team, their strength was basically similar. Even if there was a gap, it would not be too big. However, it was very rare to see such a big gap between the people of Chuanjin. Seeing that everyone realized this, Death Dark Moon said firmly, "So, I think their team should only have those 2 relatively powerful masters. The others are very ordinary. The head-on attacks in the previous 2 games really stunned us, but it was just 2 moves." The captain is right. Hearing this, everyone thought about it carefully, and they all felt that Death Dark Moon's words were somewhat reasonable. Death Dark Moon struck while the iron was hot. Then, in the next 2 games, we should be able to pull back the score. Is everyone confident? Yes. Everyone's fighting spirit was high. It had to be said that Death Dark Moon was quite eloquent. With a few casual words, he reignited everyone's fighting spirit. In Chuanzhen's lounge, Wang Yu's team had just won the first game. They were in a good mood. It felt good to step on their opponents fair and square. Wang Yu smiled and poked Wuji, who was resting with his eyes closed. Wuji, how are we going to play the next game? Is it the same as the first game? Bulsh *t. Wuji said listlessly. The second game is the same as before. Leave it to fate. Leave it to fate again? Hearing Wuji's words, everyone couldn't help but twitch their lips. Ever since they entered the Pro League, Wuji would say this every second game. Wuji said gloomily, "What can I do? I'm also helpless. Do you guys think that we are playing against the kind of people we used to play against?" Indeed, Chuanzhen's previous opponents were all normal players. Now, their opponents were pro players. Wang Yu often said that hard work was useful, but what was the point of having a genius that was based on the same amount of hard work? No matter how talented Chuanzhen's players were, there was still a gap in strength between them and the pro players who used the game as their job. The second game was randomized. If Wang Yu or evildoers Run Wild were randomly chosen in the first game, needless to say, they would definitely win this game. If these two were not randomly chosen in 5 consecutive games, the result was self-evident. Chapter 12:34. The break time was over, and both players entered the game again. The second match began, and the motley team chose the map. Wang Yu didn't hesitate and chose random. Since it was up to fate, he would listen to the end. Under the system's random selection, the second match's map appeared on the big screen. City Street. This was a medium-sized map. It wasn't too big or too small. There were 5 straight streets on each side, and the field of vision was quite wide. However, there were tall buildings on both sides of the street, which could also provide cover for the players. It was a standard sniping map, and archers could exert their greatest advantage in this map. However, Chuanzhen only had 2 archers. One had relatively average skills, while the other had good skills, but he wasn't good at long-range sniping. Needless to say, Wang Yu used all his luck on reincarnation. Soon, the players for the first match were selected and sent to the arena by the system. The Dark Moon team's player was called Nimble Hands, and his profession was a relatively non-mainstream lurker. Lurker was the advanced profession of godly thief. Not only was he unparalleled in sneaking and picking locks, but he also had the talent of being sensitive and could see through traps and other mechanisms. On the other hand, the Chuanzhen team's player was Famous Sword Daoxue. Famous Sword Daoxue was a tragedy. His skills weren't great, but his appearance rate was very high. In such a match, he was usually a free point. Of course, Famous Sword Daoxue had self-awareness. As soon as he entered the arena, Famous Sword Daoxue made up his mind to be a coward to the end. So, at the start of the match, Famous Sword Daoxue directly activated stealth, intending to switch with Nimble Hands one by one. However, when Famous Sword Daoxue moved forward, he found that Nimble Hands didn't turn invisible. Instead, he stood in place arrogantly, luring the snake out of its hole. Famous Sword Daoxue had used this move a few days ago. Seeing Nimble Hands doing this, Famous Sword Daoxue couldn't help but curse, "Damn! Are you trying to lure me to stab you? I've used this move before. Do you think I'll fall for it?" Following that, Famous Sword Daoxue found a corner and squatted down. He began to compete with his opponent in patience. Obviously, as a professional, Nimble Hands was much more patient than Famous Sword Daoxue. 10 minutes had passed, and not only had this kid not moved, he was even squatting on the ground with a dagger in his hand. What a versatile master! Another 10 minutes passed, and Daoxue looked at the Nimble Hands that were not far away from him, who had finished drawing the first chapter of Dragon Ball. Suddenly, he was unable to restrain himself. Everyone had the mentality of opportunism, especially this group of fellows from Chuanzhen. Even if there was a 10% chance of winning, they would still dare to risk their lives. At this moment, Seeing that their opponents were focused on something else, how could Ming Jian Daoxue hold back? This brat is definitely luring the snake out of its hole. If I go over and stab him, he will definitely take the opportunity to stab me to death. Motherf asterisk cur, I will disappear. What was there to be afraid of? Cheers. After weighing the pros and cons again and again, famous sword Dao Shui finally decided to fight to the death. Hence, he quietly circled around the building and moved behind Nimble Hand. However, when Namakan Daoshua's nimble hand was less than 3 meters away from him, his nimble hand suddenly shone with a faint blue radiance. At the same time, Namakan Daoshua's stealth was mysteriously removed. The power of sensitivity. Seeing this scene, Namakan Daoshua was shocked. It was said that lurkers had the talent of sensitivity and could see through traps and mechanisms. Unexpectedly, it could even see through the stealth of assassins. In a panic, Namakan Daoshua couldn't care less about stabbing Nimble Hands behind his back. While retreating, he hurriedly activated a vanish. Blinded by a leaf. At this moment, Nimble Hands had already turned around. With a wave of his hand, a leaf flew over and stuck to Namakan Daoshua. As Namakan Daoshua disappeared, the leaf leisurely floated in the air, looking very comical. A few seconds later, a Vanish's invincibility period ended. Without saying anything, Nimble Hands activated quick movement, rushed to the side of the leaf, and fiercely stabbed the air a few times. Namakan Daoshua didn't even have time to appear before he was stabbed into a white light by Nimble Hands. Assassins, after all, were so simple and crude when fighting. The Dark Moon battle team finally recovered a point in the second round. Everyone from Chuanjin pointed at Namakan Daoshua, who was knocked off the stage, and said angrily, "Just be a coward. Why did you have to provoke him?" Sigh. Namakan Daoshua sighed. It's not like you didn't see him like that just now. If I didn't stab him, I would feel sorry for his posture. After Namakan Daoshua died, to place one's pride entered the second round. Nimble Hands was worthy of being a professional-level master. He had a way to deal with any profession. Seeing that his opponent was a grandmaster of combat who didn't know stealth, Nimble Hands immediately activated stealth. To place one's pride was also alert. He quickly ran to the bottom of the wall and leaned his back against the wall to prevent his opponent from attacking from behind. However, as a professional master, Nimble Hands had absolute confidence. He didn't intend to attack from behind at all. Instead, he suddenly appeared in front of to place one's pride and directly stabbed his dagger from the front. Fortunately, to place one's pride was young and had strong reflexes. He dodged Nimble Hands' attack sideways, then he raised his hand and used Tiger Strike to grab Nimble Hands' dagger. Nimble Hands was calm and composed. He turned the dagger unhurriedly, bypassing to place one's pride's hand and slashing toward to place one's pride's wrist. To place one's pride hurriedly withdrew his hand, turned around and kicked sideways. Nimble Hands grabbed the dagger in front of his chest. Bang! To place one's pride kicked Nimble Hands' dagger. Since it didn't directly hit Nimble Hands, it didn't cause Nimble Hands to be knocked into the air. However, Nimble Hands was kicked back a few steps. After one round of fighting, both of them had a general understanding of their opponent. Their eyes were more serious. What a strong guy! Seeing Nimble Hands not far away, to place one's pride couldn't help but frown. If he hadn't dodged in time, his arm might have been sliced off by this guy. Moreover, it seemed like this guy hadn't used his full strength. Nimble Hands looked at to place one's pride in front of him, and his heart became a bit more vigilant. Damn, he's clearly just an amateur, but his reaction speed and skills have already reached the professional level. If this guy trained like me every day, then I'm afraid I would have died just now. After exclaiming in surprise, to place one's pride stomped the ground and rushed toward Nimble Hands. To place one's pride's stealth skill didn't have a long cooldown. If Nimble Hands didn't take the initiative to attack, then Nimble Hands' stealth skill would come off cooldown, and he would be in an even more passive position. Seeing To Place One's Pride rush over, Nimble Hands remained calm. He lightly jumped back, opening up some distance. At this moment, To Place One's Pride activated Collapsing Fist, and his body suddenly sprinted forward. Nimble Hands faintly smiled and used Swift Step. Instead of retreating, he advanced, circling from To Place One's Pride's side to Place One's Pride's back. To Place One's Pride landed on the ground. Nimble Hands raised his dagger, and stabbed it towards To Place One's Pride's back with a backstab. Chapter 1235. Absolute Void Kill. Seeing Nimble Hands' playstyle, all the pro players revealed a knowing smile. Ever since Rebirth started, the Thief class had always been very strong in the PK field. Regardless of whether it was the Assassin or the Lurker, they were always in the top 3 of the PK leaderboard. Although the Lurker was a petty thief and wasn't as destructive as the Assassin, the Lurker's senses were sharp, their agility was high, and their technique far surpassed the other classes. If one could play the Lurker to the extreme, their PK wouldn't be any weaker than the Assassin. For example, Nimble Hands' Absolute Void Kill was a unique move for the Lurker against the Grandmaster of Combat. Everyone knew that the Grandmaster of Combat was also an agile class. Due to the fact that the Grandmaster of Combat dealt more damage by jumping up and down than standing on the ground, the Grandmaster of Combat liked to jump up and down when fighting. However, when a player jumped up, they couldn't move as freely as they did on the ground, especially To Place One's Pride. The moment he jumped up and landed on the ground, he was left wide open. The other melee classes didn't have enough instantaneous speed, so they were helpless against the Grandmaster of Combat's weakness. The Lurker's swift movement had a speed bonus, and its instantaneous speed was extremely fast, which was the perfect counter to the Grandmaster of Combat. The so-called Absolute Emptiness Kill was a technique created by using this attribute that countered each other. For a Grandmaster of Combat to jump in front of a Lurker, it took a lot of courage. To Place One's Pride, no matter how good his skills were, was still a normal player. He was relatively unfamiliar with the moves of a pro player. To Place One's Pride reacted and saw Nimble Hands behind him, but it was already too late. Ah! Chu Ao let out a blood-curdling scream as he was stabbed by a Nimble Hand. Fortunately, the Lurker's attack wasn't high, and To Place One's Pride's equipment wasn't weak either. To Place One's Pride only lost a third of his health. To Place One's Pride landed on the ground, and immediately rolled forward to dodge. Seeing that To Place One's Pride was about to escape, Nimble Hands was unwilling to let him escape. Hence, Nimble Hands bent down slightly and chased after To Place One's Pride at an extremely fast speed. To Place One's Pride, however, slammed both his arms against the ground. He extended both his legs and kicked at the Nimble Hands that were chasing after him. Bang! To Place One's Pride's feet landed solidly on his Nimble Hand, sending him stumbling back a few meters. A quarter of his HP bar fell from his head. It could not be helped. A Grandmaster of Combat's ATK was not much higher than a Lurker's. Moreover, To Place One's Pride did not use any skills. It was still far from enough to kill Nimble Hands with a single kick. But just this move really surprised Dexterous Hands and the rest of the Dark Moon team. Meow, even a little brat had such a move. It seemed that this motley crew was able to slaughter their way into the professional league not only because they hugged someone's thigh, but also because they had some tricks up their sleeve. Thieves were originally a wretched and sneak attack profession, and Lurkers were even more so. Nimble Hands knew that the kid in front of him wasn't weak. He might not be able to gain the upper hand if he fought him head-on. Hence, he once again used stealth and disappeared into thin air. To Place One's Pride once again leaned against the wall vigilantly. Throw a stone to find the way. Nimble Hands quietly touched the left side of To Place One's Pride. With a wave of his hand, To Place One's Pride threw a stone to the right side of Place One's Pride. Throw a stone to find the way was originally a skill used by lurkers to attract aggro from monsters. It did not have a forceful absorption function like a shield warrior's taunt. However, to place one's pride was now tense. Seeing a stone suddenly jump out from the right side, his body reflexively punched it. To place one's pride once again revealed his back. At the same time, Nimble Hands raised the dagger in his hand and aimed it at to place one's pride's waist. Poochie! This stab was a critical hit. To place one's pride only had less than a fifth of his health left. Toxic flying dagger. Without waiting for to place one's pride to turn around, Nimble Hands took out a green flying dagger dart and threw it at to place one's pride's buttocks. The damage value floated up again. To place one's pride's health bar turned into a layer of HP. At the same time, he was poisoned and turned green. To place one's pride angrily turned around and threw a punch. Meanwhile, Nimble Hands wretchedly ran backward. To place one's pride chased for a few steps before his health bar was emptied. He turned into a white light and disappeared from the arena. Dark Moon Team scored another point. 1v2. Big Hands, good job. Seeing that their teammate defeated Mingjian Daoxue and to place one's pride, Dark Moon Team's fighting spirit rose again. The dejection from being shaved was swept away. Sure enough, the opponents were a bunch of paper tigers. I'm sorry, Bai Ao, who was kicked off the stage, looked gloomy. Chuanjin team members quickly came up to comfort him. It's okay. After all, the opponent is a professional player. It's already good that you can fight like this. Wang Yu was puzzled. You scums also know how to comfort your teammates. One must know that with the style of Chuanjin, it was already good enough that they didn't press to place one's pride to the ground and step on them. Of course, Chuanjin team members said righteously, teammates are family. He has already lost. How can we bear to step on him again? That makes sense. Wang Yu nodded in agreement. Bullsh *T. At this time, Wuji said coldly, the second round is randomly selected. These bastards have a certain chance of being kicked off. No wonder. Wang Yu came to a realization. They didn't kick him when he was down because they didn't want to kick him when he was down. As expected, they were a bunch of cowards. As they spoke, the contestant for the third round was summoned to the arena. This time, it was Exquisite Dream. It's an archer. It's over. Nimble Hands is going to get a triple kill this time. Seeing Exquisite Dream enter the arena, the audience could not help but mourn for her. As the class with the longest range in Rebirth, the archer's weakness was quite obvious. It was pitifully low HP. Stealth could turn invisible, so the archer's vision and shooting range were basically useless. Coupled with the assassin's unique high attack, it could be said to be the archer's greatest nemesis. If Exquisite Dream's opponent was an assassin, it would be fine. Traps could be used to restrict the opponent's movements. However, Nimble Hands was a stealth. His keen talent allowed him to see through trap. Against such an opponent, Exquisite Dream had almost no chance of winning. The match began. His nimble hands quickly entered stealth. Exquisite Dream was not idle either. She quickly moved to the bottom of the wall and set up a circle of traps around herself. Then, she summoned her pet tiger. Seeing Exquisite Dream's actions, Nimble Hands smiled. He avoided the traps and arrived beside Exquisite Dream. He raised his hand and stabbed his dagger into Exquisite Dream's neck. After being stabbed by Nimble Hands, Exquisite Dream's HP dropped by half. At this time, Exquisite Dream's pet tiger pounced over with a roar. Test the waters. His nimble hands unhurriedly threw a stone not too far away, and Exquisite Dream's tiger was immediately attracted to it. At the same time, Nimble Hands stabbed Exquisite Dream's waist. The tragic Exquisite Dream was sent out of the arena without being able to fight back. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.